What if I told you that your concentration is already 10 times better than you think it is? And you just haven't learned how to pay attention to what concentration really is. And I have a bunch of exercises for you that will help you understand that you already are way more concentrated than you think you are. And through a process of learning some meditations, you'll be able to 100 times this focus and concentration that you have right now. This is what we're going to talk about today with concentration meditation tactics for lasting focus. If you're joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And also let me know you can hear me, just in case that I'm talking and nobody is able to receive these messages. If you're watching the replay, same story. Ba-bam, ba-bam. Let me know in the follow-up how things are going for you and anything that you want to add to the conversation, because the nature of the conversation is made much more rich and beautiful and lasting in value for others when you are part of that. So Austin Studies is here. Good to see you, Austin Studies. Does that mean that you're in Austin or your name is Austin? I was having a meeting today. I believe the person I was meeting with is in Austin, and always wanted to get there. But one of these days, I'm sure. All right, good to see you. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining us, likewise, jump into the conversation. And just as a little conversation starter, what's the one thing you could never live without? That's going to be our question of the day. And I'll tell you my answer. The one thing I could never live without is concentration. Right? I could not live without concentration, and neither could you. Let's start thinking about concentration by thinking about it as circles, right? So the dictionary says that concentration is the action or power of focusing all one's attention. Now, this word all is really, really important here, as is the word attention. So what does it mean to have the action or power of all one's attention in concentration? That's why we want to think about circles, right? Because the word concentration comes from concentric, right? This is the origin of the word as far as I've been able to see in my research, and it means having a common center, as in circles or spheres. And this is why you are probably already more concentrated than you think. It's a matter of which circle or sphere of concentration you're currently in. And I'm going to share a number of resources today that I think will really help convince you that you're already more concentrated than you think. And then these meditations that we're going to talk about, and I'll share with you a number of them. This is really a tactical strategy guide today that you can go out and try different things. When you understand that you are already hitting the ground running on a much firmer basis than you have ever imagined because of the concentric nature of concentration as a series of circles, you're going to accelerate your progress with concentration very, very quickly. So how are we going to do this? Well, we got to define concentration a little bit further, but just as a announcement, one thing I wanted to let you know about is we're going to be doing a lot more about meditation and concentration in the future. So I started a Facebook page, which I would like to invite you to get involved in if you're a Facebooker. If not, then that's fine. But it's currently called Awakening Memory Meditations, and you can find it there. I've got a bunch of resources for you for today down in the discussion area below. And one of the resources is to start having a conversation about how we're going to concentrate on awakening our memory through concentration meditation. So that page is there, and I know David is already hooked up with it and discussing. So if you want to join David by visiting that page, the link is on the screen for you. It's also in the discussion below. Love to see you there. Dave is here from Beaverton, Oregon, I guess ORE stands for. I hope. I'm not sure, but you say, great to see you again, feeling fantastic and loving the ongoing education at Magnetic Memory University. Excellent, excellent. So wonderful, Dave. Really great to see you again, and glad to know that this is helping you. And thank you. Let me know if you have ideas for future things. Diana says, my phone died, so I'm on my mother's account now. XD. My name is Austin. Okay, Diana, or Austin, thank you. Look, we've got a concentration exercise right here. Thank you for that. Anyway, just so you know, this Awakening Memory Meditations page is a thing now. Later, there'll be a group. The sooner you get hooked up to it, the more you get active in it, and only get involved in it if you're interested in memory and meditation, how they bridge together, if you're interested in more concentration and meditation focus. And if not, no worries, but that link is for you in the chat history now, and it's also on the in the mega link repository below this video on YouTube. So please check out those different resources. I'll let you know what they are as we go through things. And if you're joining us, please thumbs up and let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, because Alex is here. And hello, Alex. Good to see you from Chile. Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? Got to practice that pronunciation. It's always a different part of the mouth you're using when you're speaking a different language. So Dave is in Montana. Dave with the, not Dave, Diana, and that's Austin. Mind stretch. All right. So another announcement, if you're in the Melbourne area, February 20th, I'm doing the TEDx talk over there. And I'd love to see you there. Say hello if you're in the audience, and let me know if you're going to be there so we can, maybe meet up outside of the event. And also, tomorrow I start recording this, which is the new book. And if you're not part of the street team yet, please go to magneticmarymethod.com/VM to get hooked up for the behind the scenes videos I'll be sending out just to people who are on the street team. And this is a big full-time job. I mean, it doesn't look that big in manuscript form because this is double-sided, but I'm going to read this whole thing into microphones at the studio. And I was told to make sure that I have lots of snacks because the microphone is so powerful, it's going to pick up any stomach growling. So this is going to be the highest quality audiobook I've ever put out, and I'm looking forward to getting it to you. Alexander is here with love from New Jersey. Excellent. David Jones from Tennessee on Facebook. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. If you're not already hooked up, David, we have the new page there on Awakening Memory Meditations that we're going to be getting into that topic a little bit more, and that's where things are starting to grow. So I'd love to see you over there. All right, so those are my updates and announcements. Let's define concentration a little bit more. So I think it's close mental application of not just your attention, but your awareness itself. And so awareness, you're already concentrated because you're aware of something. And now you could give this numbers. How aware are you aware of your awareness, right? If you were to give it a number, put it in the chat if you like, if it's safe for you. Are you 80% aware of your awareness? Are you 20% aware of your awareness? Do you even know if you're aware of your awareness or not? Like, are you fused with your awareness in any way? I'd love to know, because arguably all we are is awareness, and therefore we're always 100% concentrated, right? We're already there. And one thing that you can do to really help yourself wrap your mind around this concept is to read a nice, lovely little book called Standing as Awareness by Greg Good. Now, this book is really eye-opening about concentration, about focus, when you start to understand what awareness is. And so a close mental application of concentration and the meditations we're going to do really require some sort of shift in understanding that concentration is only so good as your awareness of awareness itself, right? And there's a number of tools, and I want to help you get there, because awareness of consciousness is not just awareness of consciousness, but it's awareness of consciousness plus something, which is everything in it, right? Everything that is in consciousness right now. And you can zero in and focus, or you can zoom out and be much wider. And you can think about things as a kind of oneness, right? And in some sense, this is what we want to get to. We want to live in the zone. We want to be so focused, so hyper aware that we're just blissful every single moment, because we have this oneness with the moment, the present moment. And so concentration, meditation, as a tactic for creating laser focus that lasts and stands the test of time and hopefully gets better and better and better because it grows in intensity over time, well, it's got to be understood, and you've got to understand it as awareness, and then you've got to stand in it, as Greg Good talks about. And if this isn't enough for you, standing in awareness, I mean, you're going to find that these are very challenging exercises. He's got the Direct Path, which is a much thicker book, and it has many, many more exercises than Standing as Awareness has, and it will really help you exercise your focus and concentration muscles. But these are not really meditations. They are exercises. But when I think about concentration, and when I think about, is it all, because that's what we saw in the dictionary, the word all, concentration is all attention focused on the thing in front of us. When I think about this and I try to get the best possible definition of what concentration is, I think of Eckhart Tolle's Stillness Speaks, right? Now, why? I happen to have a copy right here. Stillness Speaks, Eckhart Tolle. And he just spells it out. When you lose touch with inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. When you lose touch with yourself, you lose yourself in the world. Your innermost sense of self, of who you are, is inseparable from stillness. This is the I am that is deeper than name and form. So this is what we're after when we want concentration and we want to increase our concentration. We want to not lose ourselves in the world. We want to be that observer of all that is in the world. If we take that definition from the dictionary of all attention focused, right? So stillness is not losing ourselves in the world, but rather being the witness to all that is in our awareness as we are standing as awareness. Not that we are aware of something, but we are awareness itself in the fullest possible manner, and we stand as it. Okay? This is a very, very important thing. So Eckhart Tolle says that stillness is your essential nature, and we can get there. We can get there. And again, starting with our fundamental premise, you're already more concentrated than you think when you understand that concentration is a series of circles, and it comes from the idea. The word concentration itself comes from concentricity, concentric circles, right? So let's see. David is in the house. He says, right now during your live feed, 10 on the awareness scale, can go from 0 to 10 during the day. Excellent, David. Thanks for that. And yeah, that's interesting. Can you really ever be 0? I'm not sure, but when I think of my own goals, which would be to be, essentially awake while asleep, and not lucid dreaming, but just simply awake while asleep, then it would never be 0. In any case, concentration is stillness so that mind drifting, which is not necessarily a bad thing, can come back to a center of stillness as our essential nature, right? And so that means we don't really have to do too much to get ourselves back there, but we need to understand how we can stand as awareness and really, when we get knocked off, come back to center, come back to stillness, so that irrelevant thoughts can be neutralized or dissolved. Now, this whole idea of neutralizing versus dissolving is important because from the viewpoint of standing as awareness, we need to understand that we would never dissolve anything. That would be destroying something, right? That would be eliminating it. Neutralizing is just turning it off, and energy just changes form. And that's the more likely thing. But, that's up to you to decide. It's maybe a semantic point, but it says in the Atmabodha, the 5th verse, that constant practice of self-knowledge neutralizes ignorance as a base neutralizes an acid. Ooh, I'm not on yet today. The coffee hasn't kicked in. As a base neutralizes an acid, purifying the individual self. So, constant practice of self-knowledge neutralizes ignorance as a base neutralizes an acid, purifying the individual self. So ignorance in this case is not being in stillness. right? And not being able to get yourself back to wherever you were, like myself, tripping over my own words and then finding the way back, because we can dissolve all kinds of ignorance. And ignorance, what that is, many, many definitions to think through. But essentially, one way to think of ignorance is not being able to find your way back to center, right? Not being able to do that because you're not practicing constantly what self-knowledge is. And self-knowledge, another word for that, is just knowing that stillness is your essential nature, right? So one of the things that we want to focus on here is a Zen principle, so to speak, that the starting point, finding the starting point, is always the practice. We're always going to be finding that start, right? We just got to find the start. That's an ongoing theme. Where is the start? The starting point is the goal. Always to be at the starting point is the goal, right? Because we're always, the wave of our focus, our concentration is always changing. So another thing that understanding that concentration is stillness can help us do is eliminate the need for motivation. So a lot of people say, well, I'm just not motivated for this. I'm not motivated for that. I'm waiting to be motivated, or I need something to motivate me. No, because motivation isn't real. It's not a strategy. It's not anything that's ever going to come, right? What we would better be served doing is getting past motivation. And I think of this text that I'm reading now and studying, The Flight of the Garuda, and it's got this really interesting line here, that the nature of mind in its purity is like a stainless crystal ball. Its essence is emptiness, its nature is clarity, and its responsiveness is a continuum. In no way whatsoever is the nature of mind affected by samsara's negativity. From the first it is Buddha. Trust in this. Now, that's very interesting. From the first it is Buddha. Trust in this, right? And what the heck does that mean? It is Buddha. Well, the thing about the whole Buddha thing is they say that only a Buddha knows a Buddha, right? Well, if you understand that sentence, you know what a Buddha is, right? Because otherwise the sentence would be meaningless. So you must already be a Buddha in order to understand that, right? So motivation becomes irrelevant when you just understand that you are already what you seek. You already have all the motivation that you need because motivation isn't needed, right? Trust in this. This is the the big statement in this book. Trust in this. It's just such a beautiful thing. From the first is Buddha. Trust in this. And from the first is concentration. You are awareness. You are perfect stillness already. But ignorance of this quiet moment, this stillness that we have, just constantly throws us off of seeing what's right in front of our eyes. And then that makes it that we clamor after, we get attached to, oh, well, I need motivation in order to do this, that, or the other thing. You don't. You just simply don't, because you have higher levers to pull, right? So we're going to make motivation irrelevant by the concentration meditation exercises I'm going to give you today. The other thing is that when you get to the point that concentration is stillness, you're going to have memory improve, especially when you're doing things, right? So I just lost that line that I was quoting, but I got it back more or less in real time. Some people are going to go, and they're not going to be all that happy about that. But I'm quite happy about it because I found my way back to it, right? And memory improves. This is my quality of memory at 10:30 in the morning with all kinds of worries. Got family that needs masks because they're all sold out in China. It's not exactly the stillest time, is it? But we still have stillness, regardless of what's going on. Why? Because we practice the exercises I'm going to give you today. And we don't need to be motivated, because motivation is irrelevant when you have true concentration, right? This is really, really important to understand. And then memory improves. And it improves in a number of ways, such as finding your way back to the starting point, because you know the starting point is the goal. You not only know it intellectually, you live it, because it's the only thing that exists, because you're so concentrated on all, right? As the dictionary defines it, as we started with today, right? So this is really, really important to understand. And the other benefit you get is that you stop forgetting what you need to do next. Have you ever had that experience where you got so many things to do, but you don't remember what it was that you need to do next? That goes away. And we'll talk later about why that can go away when you really focus on concentration meditation and really the techniques that we'll talk about today. But before I carry on with some chat checking in here, and please keep your chats coming, I also want you to understand that you're going to have a broad range of techniques that help you get back to center. So we can talk about oneness, but in the oneness, there are many techniques, and one is the most dangerous number. So you want to make sure you have a number of techniques, which is why I'm going to give you a number of techniques today so that you can explore them. And also, I want to be the great boredom destroyer. So many people say they're struggling with boredom. We need to get rid of this idea of boredom, and you will. All right? So we're going to check in with our chat, and then we're going to have some examples of concentration. But these are all the kinds of things that we're going to achieve when we understand that concentration is stillness, when you are, as Greg puts it, standing as awareness, because all is the dictionary definition of concentration. All focus, all concentration in that moment on a singular action, a singular movement, which is already what you are. You just have forgotten it. You've lost it. It gets pounded out of us as civilization and its discomforts takes over, right? And we can talk about that intellectually if we want, but at the end of the day, this is how it works. So let's check in with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Alexander says, I think I've been very close to a 0 before in terms of a 0 to 10, how concentrated a person is being, if you missed that. And that was during a severe dissociation, but maybe a 5, mostly just physiological awareness at that point, or 0.5, sorry. But I feel like I feel like going any lower is just impossible, thankfully. Yeah, it could be. I mean, notice too, though, that these numbers are just words and concepts and whatnot. But thank you for that. That's interesting. I don't know that I've been severely dissociated, but I've had similar bizarre adventures in the world of psychological situations, especially when I was in the hospital for the bipolar disorder adventure. Maria is here. Thank you so much for being here. Your question is, where do we get the first push to be concentrated if it's not by motivation? That's a very good question, Maria. Thank you for that. So let's just say that there's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? Intrinsic, is something that's coming from you, and then extrinsic is something that's coming from outside of you. Well, if you understand that you're standing as awareness and you look at this from a non-dual perspective, which is essentially what Eckhart Tolle is doing in Stillness Speaks, there is no extrinsic motivation. It just doesn't exist, right? And the reason why that can be said to be mostly true is what does it mean for something to be outside of you, right? So your job, right? Well, I've got pressures from my job. That motivates me because if I don't show up for work, I'll not have my job, and then I won't be able to pay the rent, and then I won't be able to blah, blah, all that stuff, right? But your job is not outside of you. Your job is inside of you, right? It is in the most practical, direct way. Where is your job? Point to it. Well, you could say, well, it's over on 72nd Avenue, and yeah, but where is 72nd Avenue? It's inside of your awareness. It's inside of your consciousness. And when you concentrate on the present moment and where the things are that are bothering you, they're always somewhere inside of this field. So to get to your question, we can have motivation of intrinsic and extrinsic, external, internal. So if we know that everything that is in the world is appearing inside of your brain chemistry, inside of your bath, then we know that truly any extrinsic, external pressure is actually being created by your brain chemistry in collaboration with the world. And it's mostly happening inside of you, right? So all motivation is therefore, for all intents and purposes, intrinsic. It is inside of you. And those external things are somehow happening because of a chain of events that have brought you to be in those circumstances. And we're going to talk about free will a little bit later, but at the end of the day, the problem here is that you, in that chain of events, really never can find the point of where you come into having ever made a choice, right? Because it's all just happening. It's all just appearing inside of this consciousness. So, Maria, the answer to your question is to just start realizing that now is the only thing. And anything that you think about the past is really just appearing in the now. And so the first push is really up to you. Where you get that first push is your decision to make and yours alone. And it's kind of, I know, a little bit of intellectual noodling, and you're like, well, that's not very helpful, right? But the sort of exercises that you would encounter in the Flight of the Garuda, which is a highly well-respected and regarded text in the Zen tradition, it says, first, what is the origin of this mind that you, Maria, think you have? Is it a function of external phenomena, mountains, rocks, water, trees, and celestial breezes? Or is it independent of them? Asking yourself where the mind comes from, investigate the possibility thoroughly. And consider whether or not the mind originates from the reproductive fluids of our parents. Does it? Who knows? Like, does it matter? Yes, we're told that our parents are the ones that gave birth to us and so forth. But where is the evidence of this, right? Does it really matter? The whole notion of motivation is just the wrong question to be asking. But if you need it, it's completely up to you. If you are a person who needs motivation and you need the first push, then you've got to create it. You and you alone. And so these exercises will help you. And I would just say that the most direct answer to your question, Maria, is pick one that appeals to you most, get started, do it for 90 days, and don't look back. And if you have to look back, then you just ask yourself, where is it in me that I fail, that I fall down? Where is this? Because it's not anywhere outside of you. It's entirely inside of you. Now, Adolfo is here. Good to see you, Adolfo. Good evening, Magnetic Memory Method Familia from South Florida. Well, good evening to you, Adolfo. Thanks for being here. Now, Maria says, I think it is a matter of definitions. Motivation should be defined as that first push that gives you the ability to do what you must. Maria, thank you for that. But anything that says should is already a problem, right? Because of what we've just said. Shouldness is often the issue. There is no should, there just is what is. And that's a real hard pill to swallow sometimes. But this is the advice of Flight of the Garuda, which is just simply to ask again, what is the origin of shouldness, right? And where is it? So he goes on, where is the mind now? Is it in the upper or the lower part of your body, in the sense organs, in your lungs, etc., etc.? So where is should? Where is it? Show me should. Should doesn't exist. Always when people say to me, well, should I make a memory palace this way or that way? Can I make a memory palace this way or that way? Where are the memory palace police? The answer is always, I don't know. Can you? You're looking for permission? Just go and do it. Should you do it that way? I don't know. Should you? Find out and see, right? This is a very, very important principle. Nobody really knows the answer. And we know that there are best practices, there are principles, there are guidelines. The magnetic memory method is very, very successful in helping many, many thousands of people figure this out. I get memory palace drawings all the time. And the answer is that they did it. They seized upon the recommendation. They seized upon the suggestion that they should do this, right? But it's not that they should, it's just that they did because something clicked and then they went and did it. So this is a really, really important thing. It's not a matter of definitions. It's a matter of what is. And then how do things cohere to the definitions that we use? Because words are not things, right? But we can see behaviors. So if you're going to say that motivation should be defined as this, that, or the other thing, then we need to look at, is it defined that way? Where is the evidence that it's defined that way? And I would say that we would be hard-pressed to find it. Logical Indian is here. Thanks for being here. Meditation, search, Vipassana. Indeed. And you are from Delhi in India. Namaste. Good to see you. Good to see you. Maria says, I have no time to be bored. Well, I'm not sure boredom actually exists, but a lot of people get hung up on the idea that it does. And we're going to break that. And we're going to make it disappear from your life. So stick around for these exercises. Travis is here, says, Anthony DeMello explains awareness perfectly. Just need to wake up. Indeed. Well, I would love to see perfect. I don't know that it exists, but People should check that out if they're interesting. Max Lund says, I have an upcoming exam. Please tell me, how do I memorize complicated names? All right, well, we're talking about concentration meditation today, Max Lund, but let's come back to your question at the end. Sharon is here. Thank you for that question, though, Max Lund. And in terms of memorizing complicated names, you can always search up magneticmarymethod.com and go through the blog if you don't have time to hang around for concentration meditation now, but I will answer your question at the end of today. Sharon is here from Prenzlauer. Oh, okay. I thought we were going to be looking at Berlin here. Prenzlauer Berg in Berlin from Queensland. Excellent. Good to see you here today, Sharon. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And Adolfo as well. There's lots of Magnetic Memory Method members here today. Adolfo says, I've tried meditation, and the most that I've lasted in stillness is maybe 2 minutes. I attempted to recenter myself, but I gave up after a few minutes. My mind couldn't stop wandering off. Well, let's help with this, Adolfo, because mind wandering is not a problem necessarily. And 2 minutes is a great achievement. So that means you are on the verge of something completely and absolutely nuclear. So that means, I would say, stick with it. Austin Study says, Eastern philosophy is fascinating. Indeed, indeed. However, this has nothing to do with East or West. And it is philosophy in some sense. But we're not talking about philosophy, actually. We're talking about what in Sanskrit is called Param Shastram. And Param Shastram means the ultimate science. And in this case, the ultimate science of concentration. Because consciousness, it's the ultimate science of consciousness. But consciousness and concentration are the same thing, as I'm trying to point out here today. So we used the dictionary definition when we started, that concentration is full attention to all in that moment, or the period of concentration that you're in. And all, right, is really best defined as awareness, because all that we are is awareness. And so long as we stand in it, we're there. So it's not really about philosophy. It's about the science by which we demonstrate to ourselves that this argument is true and irrefutable. And we create evidence to confirm it or deny it where it might be denied, and it could well be deniable. And then we continue to practice that science scientifically. So I would take the philosophy out of this because it's not philosophical. Philosophy is different than science. There certainly is a scientific way to do philosophy, which very few people do, unfortunately, but it's very similar to what we're doing today, which is anytime we're philosophizing, we're being philosophical in a scientific way, which essentially means gathering evidence that supports or helps us discredit claims about what is true. And then when we find a truth, we then continue to interrogate its truthfulness through the collection of evidence to support or deny that status. Ongoing, never stops. It's beautiful, just like consciousness itself. Now, Logical Indian says, first see the syllabus, previous exam paper, then you use memory palaces. Bang, awesome. Use those memory palaces, please. Okay, everybody, thank you for those great questions. Good to catch up with our chat. Now let's carry on with some examples of concentration, knowing that we're going to completely destroy boredom forever when we understand that concentration is total awareness and stillness, the stillness of awareness. Can you feel it? I've got it right now. It's so beautiful. So let's get some examples of concentration. One example, which everybody is in from time to time, is called the zone. And that's being in the task positive network of the brain as opposed to the default mode network. Default mode network is characterized by I, me, future, what am I going to do tomorrow kind of stuff. What did I do yesterday? Oh, damn, I shouldn't have said that at the end of my conversation with so-and-so, etc. Or alternative fantasies about the present moment, wishing that I was here instead of there. That's not being in the zone. That's the default mode network. The zone is just being so switched on that you're absolutely in the moment. You love everything that's happening. You're not really thinking I thoughts. You're just, wow, boom, this is it. Bam. So one example for me, when I used to play in music, was being on the stage, and man, was I ever in the zone every night. Because when we go, okay, guys, ready to go? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no stopping until that song is over. Then you get a little bit of a breather. But you don't really get a breather because you're with the audience, right? And you're seeing their reaction, and then you're also paying attention to how the next song is going to start, right? And so you're just totally in the zone when you're playing music. Now, you might not play music, but it's just an example of how you can get in the zone. And one of the beautiful things about this kind of performative zoneness, so to speak, is that if you fall out of it, there's a very simple way to get back in. And that is called, in the sports world, checking your strings. So when I play bass, I definitely have strings. And one of the things that, happens is you make a mistake. So how do you get yourself back into the song? Well, you've got to let it go. You've got to let it go. So in the world of tennis, they call it checking your strings. And so what happens is you sometimes see these tennis players and they'll miss a shot, and they're really upset and angry, and they'll go wander away, and they'll start checking the strings on their racket. Now, they've got the most expensive rackets in the world, right? And yet they're still like checking the integrity, are these tight enough? Well, they're not doing it to check if their racket is okay. They're doing it to remove their mind from the thing that just happened. And so that's another example of concentration, correcting yourself to get back on course. So if you're in the zone, that's one thing. Then there's getting knocked out of the zone, and then you concentrate on getting back into it. It happened to me today when I was quoting from verse 5 of the Atma Bodha. My mouth is so dry this morning that I'm tripping over my own words. I lost the quote, other problems there, and then I had to check my strings, essentially. How? Just start again and get it out of my mouth, right? So that's another example of concentration, is correcting your course back into the zone. Because if you got into the default mode network, oh, I always make this mistake, I'm so stupid, blah, 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 then you're not going to get back into the zone. You're going to be stuck here, worry, fear, anxiety. That's not really what you want, right? But it's not necessarily not concentration, because being worried, being in fear, being in scarcity, being in lack, being worried, pain, all that stuff, well, that's concentration too, right? And remember, we started today that you're probably more concentrated than you think you are. It's concentric circles. That's what concentration comes from, the word concentricity. So there's this circle, and then this circle around it, and this circle around it, this circle around it. So if we think about being in the zone as the middle point, boom, how do you get knocked out of the zone? Well, do you get knocked out of concentration? No, you just get one circle back, right? Or maybe you get 5 circles back. And then you've got to get into this kind of next circle back into the center circle, right? But you're never not concentrated, because if I was playing this song and I was like, oh my God, I just made a mistake, and now everybody notices and they hate me, the whole band hates me, well, I'm still 100% concentrated. My awareness is 100% now focused on the mistake. And so then the skill, the metacognitive skill, and we'll talk more about this as we go along, will be how to bounce back into that perfect circle of the zone, right? And that's something to practice, right? And this is a very, very important point. Now, other examples of concentration are what's called vicarious experiences. So we're going to talk about a couple of exercises that will help you do this in a way that's going to improve your understanding of how you're always 100% concentrated, so to speak, and extend it so that it lasts, and it's a tactic. So make sure you stick around for these exercises because they're very powerful. But vicarious experience is when you're lost in a movie, for example, because you have taken on the characteristics of the life of the character that you're watching. So if you're watching The Matrix, for example, and you identify with Neo, well, you could actually get so lost in that story that when he gets punched, you feel it. Or when there's a tricky situation like Trinity, run, and can't get away, and you're like, oh, and your actual body, your psychomotor responses respond with that person. Your palms start to sweat, your heart starts to pound. This is galvanic response, right? They do this studies with people. They allow people to get all hooked up and so forth, and they see that their sweat increases, their pulse increases. That's a vicarious experience, and that's an example of concentration. We can actually invent this. We can construct it. We can make it happen to ourselves. And we often do, right? Like, for example, when we say, oh, I did it again and I'm so stupid. Well, we're having a vicarious experience with the past. We've got to get rid of that stuff, right? And we can. And today's exercises are going to help. Let me check in with the chat. Thank you so much for being here, William. Wonderful to see you. And Ipswich is quite an interesting place. And I'm so honored to have a memory palace, well, actually two, from your place over there. Thanks for being with us. And if you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Adolfo, thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the Magnetic Memory Method initiative with so much consistency as you do, and for putting it into use and helping me teach others. Some of your material is up in the Magnetic Memory Method Mastermind group, and wow, just such an honor to see and learn from you as you put the Magnetic Memory Method into action so consistently. Your question is, can we create a memory palace to help us with meditation steps, procedures? Have you used a memory palace to get into the zone? Absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because this is exactly what I think a lot of people don't understand, is that a memory palace is at some level already a concentration meditation. And there's something called frame effect. So there's an interesting study that was done one time with hotel workers. And they say to the hotel workers, all right, here's group A, here's group B. Group A, you're going to just go to work, and then we're going to measure how many calories you burned. Group B, they say to the hotel workers, we're going to give you a little bit of understanding of how many calories you burn in a day's work, vacuuming, washing windows, folding sheets, etc. And then we're going to give you a little bit of talk about what that amounts to. So they give them the calorie burning charts, and they say, this is exactly like being at a gym and doing this amount of exercise. And you know what? If you would take the elevator, if you would take the stairs instead of the elevator, you will burn 100 times more calories, or whatever it was, right? I'm exaggerating there. And they also have the A control group stop taking the elevator with no explanation of calories or no relationship to the gym. And just by shifting how they think, Group B, who is using now the stairs instead of the elevator with the idea in mind that they're going to burn more calories, and what they're doing already is the equivalent of going to the gym, bam, their health goes up. They burn even more calories, they get more fit, etc., because of frame effect. So if you, Adolfo, would just change something in your thinking and say, wow, I'm meditating while I'm memorizing, probably a lot of the benefits will increase if that study, is repeatable and if it's transferable to this. But I think already you can hit the ground running, because memory training, memory techniques, specifically memory palaces, is already like meditation. And I think you probably know that it can get you in the zone. And I think you already are using, from how you've described using magnetic bridging figures, you're already having some vicarious experience. And in that vicarious experience, when you're thinking of, some characters from movies or series that you watch or whatever, you're recreating it, you're living it. That's a vicarious experience, which is already a concentration meditation in its way. So I think you're already there, but we're going to talk more about this as we go along and talk about it in terms of steps and procedures. I'm going to give you some simple exercises you can do, and actually a number of steps to make it more complicated as you go along to increase the challenge, right? But we'll start very, very simple, just in the realm of concentration meditation, because there's a number of them, and I got a pile of books here to recommend, etc. But let's see here. Austin Studies says, anyway, I hope that helps answer or start the bridge to answering your question, Adolfo. Thank you again for the super chat. Really appreciate that. And if anybody else wants to be super chatting, that's always much appreciated, because it does a number of things to help this initiative grow, to help you more and continue to be doing these things for you. All right, thank you again. Now, Austin Studies says, do you have any advice for making sure you make the most progress studying with a week left until a biology test? Yeah, let's get to that at the end, because I got another question from Max Lund that I'm going to answer, and that's sort of some supplementary topics. But yes, I will have advice for that. Please stand by. All right, so carrying on, I got a couple more examples of concentration for you. Meditation is an example of concentration, right? So you sit, and even if, as Adolfo mentions, you only get like 2 minutes of being in that zone there, well, you've achieved something, right? But if you treat meditation in the different ways that you can treat meditation, just showing up to meditate is already an example of concentration. You know the old Woody Allen line, 80% of success is just showing up, right? Well, just show up to meditation. Show up. You'll learn so much about it, but it is already an example of concentration. And in the massive pool of links that I have for you in the description for this video, there's quite an older but still good episode of the podcast and blog post that you can read called How to Improve Concentration and Memory Buddha Style. And I give you a lot of science there, and I give you just a very practical way to meditate, just to start meditating. So please check out that resource. It's quite in-depth about how to do some basic meditation. And it is an example of concentration, and it is a concentration meditation, right? Because meditation is the act of concentrating on awareness, and not more than awareness, standing as awareness so that your awareness lasts, right? And scientifically, and the goal I made for myself is to move out of the default mode network and stay in the task positive network. So far, so good. I feel like I'm in it most of the day. And it's just a switch. If you read How Enlightenment Changes the Brain by Andrew Neuberg, you'll find that the brain scans show that it's possible. And there's a number of things that I do, which I'll be sharing with you later, that you can also emulate in order to make this happen for yourself. All right, so what's the benefits of all this? Let's go through this a little bit quickly, but there are a number of benefits, and I've already talked about some of them, but there's more, right? Because you're going to get short and long-term memory benefits from taking up a concentration meditation practice. You're going to discover the nature of focus and what breaks it or impedes it. So as you continue to meditate consistently over time, you'll start to notice that your awareness is segmented. It's concentric circles, like we've talked about already. And so you're going to be able to get back to certain circles in your awareness of the circles of concentration, and you'll see what breaks it. And then you'll be able to respond more like a Zen archer when, that's the thing that breaks my concentration. The arrow destroys it and you're back, right? Or when you come to an obstacle, you'll be like your own Ganesha. You'll be able to be the destroyer of those obstacles, and you won't get impeded. Or if you get impeded, you will get impeded for less and less often, right? Or less and less amounts of time. And you'll just have so much more gratitude, right? And you'll be able to take more risks. Another way of saying that is that you're going to get practice in restoring focus, but not just practice in restoring focus, but from the basis of having an understanding of what focus is in the first place as a lived experience. Then you get practice in deciding what you think and when you think it, instead of having monkey mind decide for you, right? Because so many of us have monkey mind. I've had years of suffering from monkey mind. It's no fun. And even when you do shoot that wonderful arrow, it's just in the wrong direction. That's no good. You want those arrows shooting in the right direction at a time of, your decision. Now, we're going to talk about this decision thing and make it more complicated in a bit. But at the end of the day, this is what you want to do, is think what you want to think when you want to think it, instead of having your mind roped and yanked left, right, and center just whenever the world, throws a wrench into the gears. Now, another benefit is that you're going to learn how to re-perceive, and that's part of what helps lead to better decisions. So I would love for you to read this paper, Metacognition and Mindfulness, the Role of Fringe in Consciousness, because it gives you more details on this re-perceiving concept. The link for that is in the description, so check it out. And then you might get greater willpower, and this is where we're going to talk about this idea of decision making, and it comes back to that free will thing that we're talking about, because free will doesn't really exist. There's no evidence for it. Yes, there's a lot of chin scratching. Philosophers will, and then people will say, well, according to astrophysics, blah, 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 and whatever. And there's an Atlantic article that came out not too long ago where people are now saying, this Atlantic article has totally debunked the idea that free will doesn't exist. Of course it exists. And then I say, if you think that Atlantic is a journal that can debunk anything, you don't have free will yet, because you've just been yanked into monkey mind, collective monkey mind, right? There is no Atlantic journal that debunks anything, It just doesn't happen. Atlantic is not a source of debunking. So this is something to understand. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in the weeds of free will, but I want you to understand that you will have a greater ability to have acts of will, and that's because you're going to understand the difference between choice and selection. It's because choice creates great misery. Oh, I wish I had the power to choose or whatever. There's no power to choose. You are born, you don't choose your parents, and then karma takes over. You're just constantly facing the pressures of the laws of reality, right? You've got to eat. This is no choice. Just have to. You've got to breathe. No choice. You just have to. Da, 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 da. Inside of your field of awareness, you're going to have many selections to make. The quality of the selections you make has a lot to do with the field of your awareness, how big it is, how well practiced it is, and how cultivated it is through constant study, constant implementation of how to improve your life from what you study, and then constant practice with, the kinds of things that you learn and memorize and so forth. So you've got to select better, and you've got to use acts of will in order to select. But there's no choice in the matter. It's really, really important. So you're going to get a benefit out of this by seeing this distinction, dealing with the things that you can't change, accepting them, and then really focusing on your acts of will to select better in life, right? So you've made the choice to be here, but you've really selected it, right? And I want to honor you for selecting this, but it's a language thing, and it's worth getting into the semantics sometimes because you really didn't choose it. You selected it from a field of potential things. And I want to honor you and congratulate you for making this choice because it's a good one, right? And if you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, do so now so that all the robots know that it's a good one because, robots should join us too. But the reality is it was selected. And one of the things I notice in my day is if I don't close down the field and narrow it down and focus it, I get yanked all the time. And oh, well, I'm doing this, but I got a notification about that. Bam, next thing you know, I'm watching somebody's live stream, right? And that could be a good selection or it could be a bad one. But at the end of the day, there's no choice in it because just things appear in the field. And then you have to decide how to do it. So you can improve how you decide. You also get benefit of more patience in life. So I always think of the Eckhart Tolle example in Power of Now, where he's always he's saying about how you could just be more patient, like when someone's doesn't show up on time. Instead of getting angry, you could just say, I wasn't waiting for you. I was just enjoying, just waiting, which is a great thing, right? It's a great attitude to have. And so you'll have that from concentration meditation. Because I find that when I'm waiting for people and I just sit there and I just pay attention to the present moment, just like I'm not waiting at all. Like, look at all this. Wow, there's like a tree here. Amazing. So arguably part of why it's so amazing is because of all these chemicals that get switched on when you meditate consistently. Sam Harris, in his podcast episode with Daniel Kahneman, called it heroin level meditation. And I don't know if that's the best possible analogy for it, but man, it feels good. So get into it, and there's some research that shows that the chemicals that are produced when you meditate consistently and you do these concentration meditations, as opposed to other stuff, they are related to some of the drugs that people take, like peyote and all that jazz. And having taken a lot of hallucinatory drugs in my day, I can tell you there's definitely a relationship. So, if you want to be high all the time, do this. Do these concentration things, and you don't need to take drugs. You don't need to take drugs. More benefits. Mental minimalism. So that comes from, I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but it comes from removing thoughts that do not serve. And we'll talk about a simple meditation that you can do in a bit that will help with that. And also to have the courage to remove objects. So one of the reasons why people have so much junk in their mind is they have so much junk in their environment, and it's very hard for them to get rid of clutter. And the two go together, right? But if you could have more courage to remove clutter from your life, you would probably have fewer thoughts, be very, very free. Another benefit is that you'll probably find that you spend more time on higher order projects, right? Because a lot of people, they are spending so much time in the engine room of life, the death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of stuff, right? Instead of creating a vision for their life, spending time on creating a vision, setting objectives so that you can achieve the vision, and then organizing your time so that the objectives that you set actually get done, right? And so this is a very, very important thing. And the more you meditate, the more likely you're going to see these higher order topics, spend more time on them, and then actually get some traction in life. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like to be able to have a vision for your life and set objectives that enable you to realize that vision and organize your time so that you can? Concentration meditation will help you because you need to concentrate to create a vision. You need to concentrate to set objectives, and you need to concentrate to organize your time. Concentration meditation will get you that. It'll get you there. Now, let's talk about some concentration shortcuts that don't work, but check in with our chat before we do. So, Adolfo says, I found that I experience massive dopamine spike after I memorize information. It feels euphoric. I am excited to experience this feeling at any given moment with meditation. I'll keep at it. Please do, Adolfo. And I know that you're a good reader. I believe, if memory serves, that you had gotten The Direct Path. And, that might be a book that serves you now. It might serve you later. Standing as Awareness is, in many ways, the same book. It's a little bit shorter, but this has more exercises in it. And I believe, Adolfo, you also have Brain Exercise Bootcamp, which will fill you with wonderful ways to bridge the gap between memory training and concentration exercises. So you've got a lot of tools. I would just say, keep exploring, and the switch is going to happen the more you explore. Let's see. D.A. Lit says, do you agree? Oh, do I agree? This is Dave in Beaverton. Do you agree that focused concentration will also diminish negative and unproductive thought habits when exercised over a consistent period of time? Not on its own. I don't think so. I would agree. I would say focused attention can be on the wrong thing. And I know this from my own experience. I was a super focused dude on negative things, focused on lack, focused on scarcity, focused on all the bad in the world. This is not going to necessarily get better unless you have the knowledge that transfers you over to the positive, that transfers you over to abundance, that transfers you over to focusing on solutions instead of the problems. I was a professor. I was in this world of all kinds of bizarre agendas and pushing people to be communists and yada, yada, yada. And they're in the dark world. If we think of Batman and Joker, one calls the other into existence, right? Remember how Heath Ledger says to Batman, we need each other. Well, really what he's saying is we create each other. Nietzsche talked about this a long time ago when he wrote a book called The Birth of Tragedy. And in The Birth of Tragedy, he shows how the Dionysian is linked at the hip to the Apollonian. What is the Dionysian? What is the Apollonian? The Apollonian, let's start there, is the idea of things being eternally true. Math, light, order, structure, geometry, etc. What is the Dionysian? It is disorder, drunkenness, decay, right? Well, you don't get one without the other, but he says it's more than that. It's that one calls the other into existence. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but in our art, we see it all the time, and Batman versus Joker is a great example of that, and Joker is sort of switched on to it. Batman, not so much, but Joker is just like, we need each other. We can't have each other without each other, right? And in the story, it's built up that way in a kind of almost a tautology, you would call it, an architectonic tautology. So tautology just means like a circle where the argument is confirmed through its demonstration. So, Tigger. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is that Tiggers are wonderful things. That's a tautology. It's just a circular argument. And Batman and Joker is a circular thing. So the reason why Joker is a bad guy is because Bruce Wayne's dad is a bad capitalist. And the reason why Bruce Wayne's dad is a bad capitalist is because there are people like the Joker who or criminals who shoot people in the streets or whatever that, need to be scrubbed out, because if he would just figure out how to work with politics better, etc. I mean, it's a complicated story, but it's what is called an architectonic tautology in narratology. And so the way that you just get beyond that, how you transcend it, Nietzsche would say, is you say yes to life. You say yes to the circle. And he called that the myth of the eternal return. So we're going quite deep into your question here, David. But the whole idea of the myth of the eternal return is Nietzsche's thing, which is basically he says, what if some demon or force forced you to live the same day again and again and again for all eternity? How would you choose to live that day, right? Well, what's so brilliant about the myth of the eternal return is it is essentially what is happening all the time, right? We get up every day. We have to eat. We have to clothe ourselves, etc., etc. And this happens again and again and again. And so Nietzsche says the ultimate answer is just to say yes to what is happening. In fact, you could say, amor fati, love your fate. And it says here, not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it, right? And so how do you love it? Well, he says you should walk every day. You should eat good food. You should, basically he says fart when you need to. And he said, just be like Nietzsche and everything will be fine. Which is kind of funny, but worked for him. And then he died. So that's the way it goes, right? I think Samuel Beckett said, I can't go on. I'll go on. And that's part of the secret here. But back to David's question, focus concentration without a positive, embracing a yes to life just as it is, the way that it is. Well, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that, you're going to diminish negative thoughts. You have to actually balance them. You have to integrate them. And this is the point with the positive and the negative of the Apollonian and the Dionysian. And Nietzsche warned Germany. He said to Germany, he said, if you do not balance this tension between the dark and the light side, the eternal truths of order and structure with the drunkenness and the Dionysian decay of what he saw as a coming fin de siècle, end of century issue of decadence, he said, if you don't balance that stuff, you're going to tear yourselves apart. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what happened. That's where World War I came from, World War II, etc. And you can go lots into that. But that's what happens in people's lives. They don't balance their animal, drunken, wild nature with the need for truth, order, and structure. But when they do, then they can diminish negative and unproductive thought. Okay, so I hope that helps to answer that question, David, and I hope it helps make Batman more entertaining the next time you watch it. Nick is in the house. Good to see you, Nick. Happy Australia Day to you. Wonderful that you are here. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. We're going to plow on and talk about concentration shortcuts that don't work, because I'm going to give you a bunch of exercises, and they are not shortcuts. This is something where you are in and all in. My dad used to say a thing, I'm not going to swear on my YouTube channel, but he used to say a thing which was basically the equivalent of do what you got to do or get off the pot, right? Which I've always liked that. And this is the way this is going to work. If you want progress, you got to do it or do not. There is no try in the old Yoda framing of it. Tox is here from South Africa. Wonderful, wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Now, Justinian had asked about supplements. So one of the shortcuts that just simply won't work is most likely supplements. And so Dave Asprey basically confirms this. There's an article called 9 Nootropics to Unlock Your True Brain. Now, I think he contradicts himself a lot in this article. I've included the link for you in the description, but at least he nails it in the end of the article. The first mistake that's made here is the idea of a true brain. Now, I know that this is just nitpicking. I know that this is semantics, but the brain is a living, breathing thing. It's a thing that is changing as we speak. It's with each breath, with each pump of your heart, it's changing. So true brain is not possible. It doesn't exist insofar as your brain is flexible in the moment. And if you're supplementing it, that means that whatever supplement you're taking is going to need resupplementation. So that's not truth, right? That's resupplementing it. So I think that this is an issue. And also, as he points out, supplements can lead to depression, it can lead to character changes, and you're facing endless purity of the substances and quality issues So basically what you could do is wind up killing yourself. You could wind up changing your personality so that others want to kill you because you're a pain in the butt. And he talks about how he himself had become a pain in the butt. And then you can also just wind up, killing yourself again because you've got all these quality issues. And so he gives the solution, which is to fix your diet first. And that's what a lot of people, wouldn't need supplements at all if they would just fix their diet, because all the things that supplements are going to bring, not all ways, but in many cases, is going to just simply give you what you would need from supplements anyway, right? Anyway, I'm not a total expert on that, but I found that article from Dave Asprey is confusing and it contradicts itself, but I wanted to share it with you anyway so you can take his word for it. I don't have any affiliate association with that whatsoever. It's just a link for you down there. Buyer beware, caveat emptor. Please use with caution. And a lot of people ask me why there's no magnetic memory method memory supplement, and that's because I haven't found one that has anything better than 0.05 verbal memory, which most of us, our verbal memory is just fine, and you can improve it, so says the research, by drinking a glass of water, which is why I drink water while I live stream, to keep my verbal memory high. And you may have noticed, if you've been with us since the beginning, I didn't have enough water at the beginning, and my verbal memory was a bit out of whack. But it's getting better and better the more that I drink. A47 MLB is here from Northern Virginia, USA. Wow, wonderful. I got to get over to Virginia one of these days. Wonderful. Thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hello. Alexander says, the one supplement I found myself okay with is L-theanine, a plant amino acid that acts indirectly, not on the neuron. But I agree so much. Every high has an equal or lower low. Great, Alexander. Thanks for sharing that. And by the way, as I've aged, I have no choice but to take a certain supplement because I have started to have problems with acid, right, in my stomach. So I've had to start to take THC or THL. Can't even remember what it is at the moment. TCH, something like this. Anyway, it's pepsin basically, and it helps you. I'm having a mind blurb here, a memory blip. What the heck is it? THL or something like that, THC. But whatever, it's pepsin hydrochloric acid. And what that does is it helps raise the acid in my stomach. So I have to supplement, but it's not without its cost. It's got a very, very bad cost. And this is, the way it is. So we are playing a zero-sum game. And in life, we may have to supplement at some point. So keep that in mind. And sometimes you just can't fix your diet. Sometimes you age in a certain way and your acid goes down in your stomach, and so you got to get it back up. So it goes, right? It's a zero-sum game. But if you can just fix your diet to the best that you can, which is something that I've done because of all my food sensitivities, is you can get to what are called Sattvic foods. And this can help you replace what are called Rajasic and Tamasic foods. And so Rajasic foods are foods that irritate you, and Tamasic foods are foods that make you lazy and slow. And it is something to really consider, to look into, because I learned how to do this through rotation diets. Well, you start with elimination diets and then you do rotation diets. And this ongoing rotation diet, as rigorous as it is, as much discipline as it requires, my life has improved so much just simply by doing it. But it was no shortcut, I can tell you that. It took 6 months of testing to figure it out, and I have to retest, and I have to retest, and I have to retest. Reclaiming Life says, the MMM memory supplement is 1 to 2 doses of practice per day. Indeed, this is the case. It is true. Practice, practice, practice. And one of the things to practice is not looking for shortcuts, but rather figuring out what is the fundamental that will accelerate my progress once that I have mastery. That is the shortcut. The long way is the shortcut, figuring it out. So fix the diet first and then see where you go from there. So other shortcuts that won't work, and unfortunately this is a shortcut that a lot of people try to take, doing nothing. A lot of people do nothing, and that's never going to work. I don't think we have to go much deeper into that. But why do people do nothing? Well, because it's the easy path. And when it comes to memory and concentration and focus, so many people are just happy to get by, right? And so one of the things that you can do is think about, is getting by really satisfying for you? Hi to Reclaiming Life, by the way. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for that. Because practicing doing nothing is itself a practice, and it has just as many wear and tear issues on your body as anything else. So your posture can be completely destroyed by doing nothing with a cell phone in kyphosis all day long, right? Your posture can be destroyed by laying on the couch. Everything has a cost. Life is a zero-sum game. So, it's a shortcut, all right, to do nothing. I'm going to sit on welfare and do nothing, blah, 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 blah. Believe me, when I was in the hospital, they invited me to go on welfare. They're just like, go back and finish your BA. Forget about it. Forget about it. And they wanted me to, they were going to help me get hooked up on welfare and, just do nothing. Forget that. No way. Not on my watch. But some people will take that path. And you've got to ask yourself, is that a good shortcut? It's not going to help you with concentration meditation. The other thing that doesn't work is inconsistent practice. So as we get to these exercises that I'm going to give you today, these tactics that you can employ, and now's the time to get a notebook, by the way. Start taking notes because we're going to start getting into them real quick here. You've got to understand that consistency is key if you want to maintain sustained focus for long periods of time and achieve flow. All right? So half the battle here is making sure that you have habits intact, right? And at the end of the day, there's lots of ways to get your habits going, habits flowing, habits flourishing and growing. But you need some resources. And I would suggest that whatever you do, forget about people's opinions, forget about the way you want it to be, and just do what works, right? So I want you to read Mind Shift by Barbara Oakley. Mind Shift is great because it not only teaches you about how to get habits going, but it also teaches you about why habits are so hard to start in the first place. And it has to do with the insular cortex in your brain. So there's a long review of it, detailed review on magneticmarymethod.com. I've got the link for you down in the description. You can also read one of my favorite books, which is called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. He gets into, this is really one of the first places that I read all about the dopamine and the myelin and all these opioid receptors that fire and so forth. And it's just really well and lucidly explained. There is a way to grow your greatness, and it's well spelled out because it's in your brain. Your brain is a garden, and you can grow it. It's just that simple. So read The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. Amazing. Atomic Habits by James Clear is very good as well. And my interview with him is linked in the description. And it's kind of funny thinking about it because I'm now going tomorrow to narrate this audiobook in full, or this book as an audiobook in full. And I was asking him about how I was going to get this book written in a habitual way on this interview. So, if you're interested, you can figure it out. You can listen to that and figure out what I figured out, if I figured it out, and see if you can see what's going on there if you're interested. All right. So autotelic flow is what we're ultimately going for. Not flow as such, but we want doing as its own reward. We want to be switched on. We want to just have it happen. We don't want to be thinking about it. We just want to show up. And what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says is that an autotelic person needs few material possessions and little entertainment, little comfort, little power or fame, because so much of what he or she does is already rewarding. Because such persons experience flow in work, in family life, when interacting with people, when eating, even when alone with nothing to do, they depend less on external rewards that keep others motivated to go on with a life of routines. They are more autonomous and independent because they cannot be as easily manipulated with threats or rewards from the outside. At the same time, they are more involved with everything around them because they are fully immersed in the current of life. Bam! The current of life. Isn't that great? I believe every single one of us can become either an autotelic person or we can become better at it. And we got to get into flow because doing is its own reward. And this is the question that we had before and went on about in a bit of nerdy detail that came to us from Maria. And the question is how? What if you just can't find your way to doing this? What if you just can't get into flow? Well, we talked earlier about vision statements. We talked about creating actual milestones, and then scheduling your time, that's part of it, right? Just build it. Build it so that you can get into it and focus on those things. Concentration meditation is going to help you, as I hope to have shown already. And one thing you might consider is to do some self-hypnosis. So when I was struggling with my PhD dissertation, I really didn't want to write that thing. I wanted to quit. My doctor, father, as they say in German, Dr. Vater, he had told me, he said, oh, there's not going to be any job or whatever. And it was a dark winter again, another dark winter, and I was in depression and blah, 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 not happy, drinking my face off. I got so drunk. You see this scar on my head here? I got so drunk one night. I was so unhappy with my own life that I would drink tall cans, sometimes with a straw, so that I would reduce the amount of oxygen getting in with the beer. And I used to have kettlebells all over the place. And I was in this apartment in Manhattan overlooking the Hudson. This is in Washington Heights. And seeing the George Washington Bridge. I'm so damn drunk this one night because I really don't want to do this stuff. My PhD dissertation was all on index cards spread all over the floor, rearranging it in different ways. I really don't want to do this. I'm escaping life by being drunk. And I don't know how, but I somehow fall. And I hit my head on one of these kettlebells. And that's why I have this scar here. I cracked it open real bad. And then I spent the rest of the night in the hospital waiting to get stitches. And I was so drunk. I was so stupid that night. But, am I gonna die? I was like one of these morons that you see on reality TV. I'm gonna die. Anyway, they finally stitched me up and they send me back. And later, I got the stitches taken out in Hell's Kitchen of all places. Whoa, what a place to get your stitches removed. Anyway, the whole thing is I figured I have to do something. I have to get this dissertation done. So what I did. I had certificates already in hypnosis. I'm an NGH, National Guild of Hypnotism certified hypnotist. And so I hypnotized myself. I made a recording that got me to just sit down and get this done. Now, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of how to hypnotize yourself today, but it is a concentration meditation. It is, even if you create it yourself. If you go and get hypnotized by somebody else, if they know what they're doing, if they're any good at it, it's also going to be a kind of concentration meditation. We just use different words. The main difference here, though, because there is a bit of a difference, the main difference is that hypnosis, right? The definition of it is well put by Kreskin, the amazing Kreskin. And he really just says that, it's persuasion, right? And persuasion is nothing more than the acceptance of a suggestion. Hypnosis is nothing more than the acceptance of a suggestion. So, long story short, even though I was miserable, I was drinking myself into a stupor so bad that I ripped up my face, I gave myself the suggestion that I was going to finish that thing come hell or high water, and I did. So, self-hypnosis is something to explore. We're going to talk about it. I've had some questions about NLP and so forth. Does it exist? Does it not exist? The short answer is Kreskin 101. Persuasion, which is what a lot of NLP is about, is the acceptance of a suggestion. So does NLP need to exist? No. But if you can create that outcome either to yourself or others, and you do it using the tools of NLP, well then, for all intents and purposes, NLP exists. But that's not the right question. That's just the question of semantics and terminology and yada, yada, yada. Self-hypnosis has worked for me. It's worked for a specific reason, and it's worked because I have some knowledge of what hypnosis is and its tools, and I use it on myself every day, actually, to this day, and I suggest that you do as well if you can't get into flow. But let's just assume that all the resources that I just shared with you and the links below get you where you need to go, and you don't need any of this sort of help with self-hypnosis. Then you're going to want to think about types of concentration meditation. So get a piece of paper. I'm going to check in with the chat here, get a drink, and then we're going to talk about types of meditation, and we're going to teach you how to do some of them. And I'm having a lot of fun. I don't know about you guys, but if you're just joining, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And Nick says, doing nothing is a luxury with painful side effects. Indeed. truth to that. And thank you for wishing me fun in the recording studio. I think it is going to be fun indeed. And we'll see. A new experience, a new skill. I get such dry mouth, I have to make sure I have 1,000 bottles of water. But Alexander says, boredom is strange to people who concentrate consistently because 10 lifetimes wouldn't be enough to absorb 1% of your interest in the world. Oh, indeed, indeed. But then that's the thing, right? And this comes back to that where in the, like this thing from the flight of the Garuda that I shared at the beginning. It says, this wonderful exercise. It says, where is the mind now? Is it in the upper or lower part of your body, in your sense organs, in your lungs or your heart, etc.? Right? Like, where is that 1%? Where is the 100% of the world that you could never absorb? I think you're right in a very practical way. We've got the 80-20 rule against us, but where is the 80-20 rule? It's in our perception. We already have it all. It's just blatantly so. And there's really nothing to deny that, to invalidate that statement, except for your own ignorance, right? And ignorance, I mean, also in the philosophical sense of the Advaita Vedanta tradition, which is that you just haven't yet switched on to the fact that this is it. Now is all we've got. And so you already have what you're looking for. So I would say that boredom is strange also because you don't need 10 lifetimes. You just need this one lifetime because it's all already here in our awareness right now. This is the power of now. And I think Eckhart Tolle is right. All right. Oh, A47 MLB says, my uncle used to say boredom is the sign of an idle mind. Yes. And I would say we could add some pejoratives to that mind as well, because boredom just simply isn't necessary. It's a choice. And if you're looking for ways to get rid of boredom, one thing I would suggest is getting these Bring Gratitude cards, because they have a number of exercises that can help you, understand, well, wait a second, you have no right to be bored. If you have the ability to access this live stream right now, you are so blessed, in so many ways that you might need to get some gratitude going for yourself if you're bored. All right, so we're going to dive into some of these types of concentration meditations. And the first would be a focus on objects. Now, we can get really nerdy about what counts as an object. One of the things is that you have to think about, just to cut to the chase, to go from the most complex to the simplest, is that pretty much everything that appears in awareness is an object. And because it appears to you, you are not it. You cannot be the object that appears to you, right? Because awareness is the thing in which objects appear. And so that's a higher order focus on objects meditation, which would be to focus on the object of perception as it appears to you, right? To focus on it as an object. The Waking Up app has a lot of stuff like this from Sam Harris. But we can get more simple. And there's a number of object meditations in standing as awareness. They're not really meditations. They're like exercises, but they're meditative in nature, and they can help you concentrate. So, for example, one thing you can do is just meditate like this with a cup in your hand and look at it. And then just ask yourself, where in my consciousness, where in my awareness, where in my concentration is this cup? And then you can do that same thing with your eyes closed. And you can do it where it's not balanced on your hand, but elsewhere. And you can get different cups. This one's an especially tasty one. But you can just sort of think about this, like, where is the color on the cup? And what is the color? And what divides this red color from the space around it? And really just concentrate on this and start to notice how that there's so much of this all around you. There's so much color. The objects are not the color, and yet they're not the color, right? And as you concentrate on this and you start to see the distinctions, you begin to notice that your mind is this great filter. And you begin to see how that your concentration is such a thing that is always on. And by focusing on objects in your environment, Maybe it's a playing card. Maybe it's, a coin. You've got endless things that you could do this with. And even just taking something like this and starting to interrogate it, starting to inquire about it. Where does this sensation of the coin in my fingers and myself end? Where does it begin? Where does my awareness of the coin begin? And you can do this endless sort of game of variations with meditative exercises. And then you start to see how many layers of the onion peels back. Because where is this coin? Well, it's in my fingers. And then I start to notice that my hands are Australian style, kind of sweaty and sticky. And that is giving it a feel that it wouldn't have if that I wasn't sweaty. And then I can notice that I get the feelings of, the uncials. I love that word, uncials. The raised uncials here. And they're sharp in some places, and they're dull in other places, like these flames on the Amorfati coin. And you just could do endless sort of things. Now that's one layer of the object. But then there's the object, how did it come into my possession? And then, well, there's a story there. I don't need to tell you the story now, but it's an interesting one. And that's another layer of perception. So focusing on the storyness of any object that's in your awareness. You could do it with your journal and then start to think of the many layers, both the actual physical sensations, maybe the smell. The smells. That's definitely been carried around the city a little bit. It's not like a nice book. There's all kinds of things that you can play around with. So focus on objects. If you've taken the free course at magneticmarionmethod.com, you know that there's a number of things with the candle exercise, the apple exercise, the corner exercise, the negative space exercise, and so forth. So please make sure that you've taken that course, because you can focus on objects in a number of ways, and this concentration meditation will change so much. Many of the great painters were very good at this. So modernism, in many ways, is a concentration meditation on the presentation of objects in our field of awareness and helping jerk us out of our normal perception so that we start to perceive it with a new perspective that then changes how we see the objects in the real world. It's very, very interesting and compelling to look into. Okay, so that's one kind of concentration meditation. And if you want to just get started, just whenever the time is right for you, get a cup, put it in your hand, and start to observe it and concentrate on it. Concentrate on as many layers of the onion as you can. And as you peel them back, as James Joyce says in Finnegan's Wake, dial all the way back to Adam. Go down through as many layers as you can, noticing the nature of the concentration as you peel back those layers. And as you continue to peel back those layers, take it back another step. Where in my consciousness awareness is this happening? Right? And then when you have the cup out of your hand, the object out of your hand, whatever it may be, think of the memory of the object in your hand. Where is the memory of the object in your hand? If I think of it, it's kind of like here, I get this sensation. Think of this. And then just, step back, and as I started with, where is the object of your mind? Or where is your mind? Where is your memory? Right? And then you'll see that your memory is actually an object that is appearing in you. And you are not it, because you cannot be the thing that appears in you, theoretically. That's according to the philosophy, but I think it's true. I think if you really interrogate it, you cannot be the things that appear to you, even in your mind. So the memory of the cup, I am the thing that is perceiving the memory of the cup as an object in me, quote unquote, right? So that's one thing to play around with. And I'm sure you'll find that boredom will never happen to you again when you practice this consistently over time. So please do. Now, another type of concentration meditation is to focus on words or focus on word parts. This is the great memory tradition in the West, and I don't know enough about it in the East, but I believe it's the great memory tradition in the East as well, is to understand the role of words as the core of how we can memorize things quickly. And when we focus on words and word parts, we can concentrate and meditate on the nature of language, which is a thing that appears in our awareness. It is essentially back to object meditation, right? But in this case, it's more fluid, it's more slippery. It is something that has a strange characteristic of being constantly moving and not always an object, because words printed on a page, even if you memorize them word for word from the page, they may move around in your mind in a way that they don't move around on the page. Now, one guy I find really fascinating, and I think that you should look at him, is Harry Canet. And so Harry Canet, he had this really interesting idea of multiple mentality. And so he would write with both hands and his mouth and his feet at the same time. And he would solve equations with one of these hands while writing a new poem with another one, while spelling the alphabet backward with his foot, etc., etc. And so this is heavy-duty concentration with words, with parts of language, and focusing on words and parts. So I would encourage you to look up the Multiple Mentality course with Harry Canet. I think you could probably find a PDF online. I think it's in the public domain now. And look at what he's saying there. This is the origin of my playing around with memorizing the alphabet backwards, which is a great concentration meditation. But there's other concentration meditations with words and word parts that you can do. So you can do the alphabet backwards, which I highly recommend, but you can do the alphabet forwards and skip letters. So A, C, E, A, B, C, D, no, yeah, A, B, C, D, E, yeah, A, C, E, and so on. And it's something that's actually more challenging than you think. You can also go A, Z, B, Y, C, X, D, W, etc. like that. And that is a concentration meditation that will really help you see the object of the alphabet in your awareness and perceive your awareness of information in the space of you as you stand as awareness, not in awareness, but as Greg Good says, as awareness. And so the quality of your awareness is going to be how you can organize and juggle information that is in your awareness. And the direct improvements that you'll see from this kind of work, which is part of what the Magnetic Mary Method does as a learner, is it helps you mentally organize information in the space of your awareness, which is a very, very wonderful and such a good thing to have your brain absolutely switched on so that it is organized, because it can focus on the words and words as parts. This gets into word division, this gets into bridging figures, etc., which are in the Magnetic Mary Method program. Now, another thing that you want to do is add movement. So movement meditation is great. So this can be walking meditations, but it can also be things like learning how to juggle, right? And really concentrating on it. And then if you watch the video where I talk about this, which is linked down below for you. Oh, by the way, Harry Canet, I have a video of him in the description below. So watch him doing that. It took a while to find one, but it's there. And I think you'll find that you'll really enjoy it. So movement meditation, and then we'll check in with the chat. So if you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, how you're thinking, questions, comments, etc. Get involved. Really enjoy interacting with you. And the more interactive we are, the better. In terms of adding movement, so walking meditation, there's a number of things that we could talk about there. There is juggling and adding more balls, etc. And then what I like to do, and I do it in the video where I'm juggling, is singing while juggling and reciting from memory. So you could do the alphabet backwards, for example. You could do the other sorts of alphabet juggling while you're juggling, A, Z, B, Y, Z, C, X, etc. You can sing. So I like to sing Chinese, Ni wen wo ai ni you duo shen. And it's like really challenging. It's more challenging than you would think. So that's adding movement. You can do breath meditation. So my favorite is alternate psychic nostril breathing, where you pretend to breathe in one nostril, out the other. We'll just sort of go over that quickly because there's a video coming out soon in a couple days where I'll teach you that a little bit more. Pendulum breathing is very, very good. Box breathing. If you go to magneticmarymethod.com and look at the How to Memorize a Speech, I'm pretty sure I talk about box breathing there. So check that out. And so that's a great thing. And then there's just like movement meditation. I learned a lot of things in Sistema, which are patterns, like, for example, linking your walking with your breath. So one of the patterns you can try is take one step with one breath. So one step, one step. Then what you do is 2 steps with one breath. Then 3 steps with one breath. 4 steps with one breath. See how high you can go, but don't pass out or anything like that. Make sure you see a doctor before you do this kind of stuff. And then scale back to 1. This is an incredible concentration meditation because you're linking your breath with movements and focusing on changing your attentional awareness to how much oxygen you need and how little you need as you go. And if you can get up to 10 steps with one breath, then you're going to be super focused and concentrated. This is a very, very beautiful, powerful concentration meditation. I highly recommend it. Now, in Happiness Beyond Thought, Gary Weber talks about number skipping. Please read this book. Very, very powerful. Number skipping is very challenging concentration meditation, but let's just start with simple, which is not so simple. It took me a while to be able to do it, which is to count from 1 to 10 while meditating and breathing. Counting 10 breaths in and out, it's a challenge. It can still be a challenge. Number skipping, next level. And so let's just start there. You go 1 to 10. One breath is 1. In, out, 2. Now, number skipping is breathing in on 1. This is how I do it anyway. Breathe in on 1, breathe out on 1, then breathe in with nothing represented in the mind. Breathe out with nothing represented in the mind. Then breathe in and allow yourself to count 3. Do that all the way up and all the way down. So you go up, allowing yourself to represent the odd numbers, down, allowing yourself to represent the even numbers. You're suppressing the representation of 1/2. And what's happening in that space? Well, ideally nothing. But it's very hard to get there. It took me a long time. Think of this, back to hypnosis, as the don't think of a red cat, right? This is a negation, it's called. Don't think of a red cat causes you to think of a red cat, in sales. Don't think about buying this right now because blah, blah. This is theoretically, by putting don't, you're making it more likely that they will think of that thing. So when you're trying to suppress the number 2, for example, it's going to be really hard because you're essentially saying to yourself, don't think of the number 2, and you need to represent the number 2 to give yourself the command to not represent it. But I didn't believe it was possible, but it is, and you can get there, and it's the most extraordinary accomplishment in your concentration and meditation. And it is the path to removing symbolism in your mind and having what's called PNSE, persistent non-symbolic experience, because that's what number skipping helps with, getting to non-symbolic experience. And I didn't think it was possible, but I'll never forget the first time that I was able to complete this number skipping exercise, and then later it led to sitting in the park and everything's gone. Didn't last very long, but man, it felt like forever. And it was amazing. It's just perfect stillness. And then that helped lay the foundation for a stillness that is deeper than before. And the ocean just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper the more that I practiced. Really, really important. So I've got some more concentration meditations for you. Let's dive into the chat and see what's going on there. If you're joining us, let me know what's going on with you, where you're at. And let's start with Galfa Mail. Says, I have dyslexia. I hope one day your app will help me. Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson, and I appreciate you a lot. The value you add and wisdom you spread is really impressive. Well, thanks for that, Galfa. Here's the old doctor himself with his old VIP pass. Got to shake the man's hand once upon a time. Have a little chat, ask him the critical questions that a guy like me needs to ask, and you better believe we talked about memory. All right. Thank you, Galfa. And I really appreciate you being here, and thank you for the kind words. Alexander says, I've been twirling pens in my hand sometimes, and I enjoy it because if I concentrate hard enough, I don't have to think about the pen, and I feel the limit of my neurons firing in my brain instead. Amazing. That sounds incredible. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And I think twirling pens is a really amazing skill. Some people can do some amazing things with that. And there's some cool magic tricks you can do as well. Reclaiming Life says, I have recently bought both a unicycle and a slackline to add another level of challenge to movement meditations, increasing my focus and making it all more fun. Those sound like two amazing things. Is a slackline strong enough to actually get a unicycle up on it? I imagine so, if you had it tight enough. Amazing. That's definitely going to increase focus. And then I imagine if you do some recitation and some number skipping while you're doing that, all the better. Monst says, why am I just getting the notification for the live stream? I wish I knew the mysteries of why things work the way they do on the internet, Monst. I think if I did, we would have we'd have everybody using memory techniques by now if I was in control of those notifications. But thank you for being here. Really good to see you. Alexander says, when I first tried the skipping method in breathing meditation, I thought it'd never work, but with practice, it felt more and more effortless. Excellent. Austin says, I have Asperger's, and I'd like to just say thank you so much for all the content you put out. Well, thank you for being here, Austin, and for sharing that. And I don't know much about that condition. I have a friend who says he has Asperger's. He's one of the most creative and amazing people. If he'd never told me, I'd never know. He just seems like a great person. So, with my bipolar thing, for years I went around wearing the albatross of that thing. It's a dead, stinky corpse, the name bipolar or manic depression. And, it is what it is, and it was what it was. And, sometimes it's useful to still use that term and so forth. But one of the best things that happened to me in my life is I took the albatross off my neck and threw it back into the sea. To hell with it. I mean, it's not necessary, right? You're just a person at the end of the day. And I made a lot of music with my friend Colin, who says he has Asperger's, and he's a professor. He's a genius. He's such a genius. I don't see what Asperger's has to do with it, but, consider that with these concentration meditations we're talking about today, that idea is an object that appears in you, right? And ask just, where is it? To whom is this happening? And where is the mind to which it is happening? That can be very helpful. Now, not an alternative to seeking support and doctors, and maybe run that past the doctor first, because please do, actually, because we don't want to cause any issues. But I think that I wish I would have found books like this a long time before doctors got hold of me, because I can tell you, they put the they put old Dr. Forget on me, and I didn't like that at all. All right, Reclaiming Life says, I hadn't even thought about the unicycle on the slack line. It would be strong enough, but I need to get them both down as their own individual skills before even considering combining them. Indeed. Yes, and please be safe. Month says, I have exams in 2 weeks. What's the best advice you can give me for studying? We got a similar question. We're going to get to that at the end, Month. Thanks for that question. Let's check in with our types of concentration meditation and carry on. So another type of concentration meditation, it would be chanting, singing with mudras. And so how are you going to do that? You can just open up a text and do it reading the text. Or you could put on a video where the text is displayed and sing along with it. Nothing wrong with this. This is great. It's like the hymn in church or whatever, right? And that has a place. One of the things that I like to do, though, is I like to memorize the chants, right? And so how are we going to do this? Well, we need to build our skills, right? So there's short form memorization and there's long form memorization. And when it comes to concentration meditation, whether it's a short form memorization or a long form meditation, you'll come across this word mantra. Now, mantra sounds all spiritual and woo-woo and all that sort of stuff. And for years, I said, I'm never going to do this, blah, 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 blah. But a friend of mine said, dude, that's the same thing that Gary Weber was sort of on about in his understanding. I don't think that proved true, or I was hearing it the way I wanted to hear it or whatever. But he does talk about needing and wanting a secular tradition, or building a secular tradition, or extracting a secular nature out of things so that it's science, so that we don't require belief. And lo and behold, it turns out that mantra is just an old Sanskrit word, which is the instrument of thinking, right? An instrument for thinking. So take all that stuff out. My objections are gone. Oh, that's what it means? Bam, let's memorize some. So that's what I did. And I wound up memorizing a whole ton of this stuff. And so it started very simply, though, with something called Kirtan Kriya, which is just 4 syllables. Now, you could do it in Chinese, which is a, me, to, fo, or you can do it in the Sanskrit, which is sata, nama. And this is scientifically shown, demonstrated, to improve your memory, focus, and concentration. And it's a very good concentration meditation. So a little mantra, sata, nama. Now, this is a mudra to do it with your hands. You don't have to do it with your hands, but that's how I learned it. And it's very, very powerful. Satanama, Satanama. And then here's the thing. You can get into station skipping. Sa, na, right? And practice that. It's really cool. And it's very much a concentration thing. You have to concentrate and focus on it as you're learning it. You can also do one hand in the other direction. So Satanama, Satanama. One is going forward, one is going backwards. And you can do the skipping. Sa, na, ta, ma. Oh man, it feels so good. So give that a try. Instrument of thinking. Now, the problem with Satanama is I don't find the meaning of Satanama very interesting, so I never memorized it. But when I want to use instrumental things to think better, then I have memorized lots from this book and also another book called Evolving Beyond Thought. And even if you just memorize the first 2 lines of the 32 Ribhu Gita passages that are in there, I think you'll find them very, very interesting because they boil down to, are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? Right? What a beautiful mantra, instrument of thinking that you can concentrate on that reveals the nature of your thoughts and neutralizes them instantly, right? So in the Sanskrit, chittameva mahadosham, chittameva hi balakaha, chittameva mahatmayam, chittameva mahanasat. Are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? Well, I started to train myself to do that. I concentrated on reciting that again and again and again and again. And I had a monkey mind filled with all kinds of unwanted thoughts, torturous, endless memories I didn't want to have. Those 2 things have removed it almost completely. And when it happens, 2 questions. Are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? And then you inquire from there. I think doing it in the Sanskrit is really, really important because it gives it an extra layer of lens, so to speak, an extra lens that distances yourself even more and gives you this kind of distance so that you can see it for what it really is. Anyway, I give that to you. And to memorize it, please get the free memory kit at magneticmemorymethod.com if you don't have it already, or take the masterclass to learn how to memorize because there's more to memorize and it's so much fun. It liberates you so much. All right, so another type of concentration meditation is biographical thought control. Now, biographical thought control is something I've been playing around with for years, and essentially we just talked about how to neutralize it, but I recently have come into possession of something that reminded me of it a lot, which is Franz Bardon and the Initiation into Hermetics. Now, I'm not sure I can recommend this book because, unfortunately, it's filled with a lot of stuff that hasn't stood the test of time. However, as a scholar, it only makes sense to reveal the sort of sources and think of what you might do because my opinion is not necessarily relevant here. But he has some interesting exercises that you might want to go through. And one of the things that is quite interesting that he talks about is the difference between your biography of now and then the biography of what's to come, and really helping yourself resolve those things. So making sure that the vision that you want for the future is true, which really bridges into a lot of what I've been talking about for a long time. But in any case, just another resource for you to check out from my current research project into Hermeticism, which is very, very interesting. Recommend it. Who would like, let me know in the chat, by the way, if you would like to see some more videos on Hermeticism. Please let me know. Let's see here. So to give you something to do with biographical thought control, I would suggest that you relax yourself first. And this is essentially what he suggests as well. And then revisit a memory, the memory of the day, or a memory from 1,000 years ago, so to speak, a memory from whenever you can remember something, and then build it up in your mind and then release it, let it go. And to really make it much more rigorous than anything in Boredom here, structure your thought about your biography with numbers or the alphabet. So a simple exercise you can do is just try to figure out, concentrate on this. Don't do anything with a book or the internet or anything like this. But just ask yourself, what year was it when you were in grade 1 and how old were you? And try to work it out. So sit, relax, relax, relax. Maybe draw a square of the room that grade 1 takes place in. And then just try to work out what age you were and what year it was. This is really concentrating. Then go through the years and maybe skip. So go from grade 1 to grade 5 and figure it out. Go from grade 5 to grade 8 and figure it out. Go from grade 8 to grade 12. Like pick a pattern and concentrate and focus and work out the years. And then also, where were you? And go further. Who were your friends those years? What were their names? What was the name of the teacher? Or if it was high school, the teachers. Or if it's university, the teacher, the professors, right? Go through this. It's really, really powerful. I do this quite frequently. And I don't ever memorize what the conclusions are so that I can do the exercise again. When Ollie was here not too long ago, we were doing this exercise while we were driving because we heard a Richard Marx song on the radio. And we're just like, what year was that? And instantly the exercise that I think of is, not just to randomly think of, oh, well, it might have been this year or that year, but I go back to what grade I probably was in. And then that gave me a pretty close year. And that's an alternative to, oh, let's just look it up. And I as I remember the events of the evening, I told everybody, no, don't, we're in an Uber. And I said, don't look up on the internet. Let's just try to work this out. And I second guessed myself, but my first guess was dead on for the year based on this sort of thing. And then I ruined it by second guessing myself. But in any case, that's a kind of exercise that you can do. So go into your biography, but structure it with numbers. So in this case, it's the alphabet, the numbers, the years. There's other numbers you could do, like the grade numbers, but you can also do alphabet things. So think of the letter A and think of a family member or a friend, and then just try to build some memories from them. So how many places can you remember being with Alex, for example? And I'm thinking of an Alex now that I had as a student when I was a university professor and we hung out a bit. I can start to think of all the locations. Now, I got drunk a lot of these times, so I'm not sure what all of them were. But yeah, I can think of 5 pretty much off the top of my brain, but there might have been more. So think of a friend using the alphabet, how many locations you've been in. Just count as many as you can. Then go to B. So Bill. How many places have you been with Bill? This is a biographical concentration meditation. Let's check in with the chat before I give you a couple of more exercises. Are you enjoying these exercises? Let me know in the chat. Let's see. Where were we? Galfa says, I wonder what happens if we add lucid dreams to the mix. Indeed. Well, in some sense, lucid dreaming is another concentration exercise, but I wouldn't call it a meditation. So, but you could meditate before you sleep as part of inducing lucid dreams. So that's very, very true. And one of the best ways to do that is by journaling, showing up, writing down the date in your journal and saying, I'll remember all my dreams, and then journaling again when you wake up. Let's see. Barden is in the house. Good to see you, Barden. You have an exam in 5 days. What do you suggest? We have a lot of people asking about this on today's live stream, and I will say to you, Barden, as I say to the rest, we will catch up with that at the end so we can focus on today's topic. But thank you for being here. Thanks for that question. If you can't stick around till the end, please come back. When the replay is up, you can go to the time when I go through the questions in the chat, and we'll check out. You can check out what we have to say about that. All right, thank you. Oliver, good to see you, Oliver. Thanks for all your comments the last little while, and good to see you. Meditation, you say, has become much easier. You're working on your memory. Excellent. Memory will improve meditation, and meditation will improve memory. You say, used to try to think about nothing, which simply doesn't work. Taking a memory journey helps. Oh, yes. This is the reason why thinking about nothing doesn't work is because it's the wrong way to approach the problem. And that took me a long time. I rejected so many exercises because I thought they were talking about no mind. And that's not really a very good goal. But I mean, maybe for some people it is, maybe for some people it works, but it led me on many years of practice that could have been better if I hadn't had the primacy effect lock me in the ideas that I was locked in, because I was trying to avoid no-mind meditations that might have helped. Anyway, that's a longer story to tell another time. Reclaiming Life is open for more on Hermeticism. Excellent. Nick says, would self-hypnosis and NLP work with unwanted biographical memories? I don't see why not, but I wouldn't say that it would have to do with self-hypnosis or NLP. But let's talk about that next time we hang out, or explore it when we catch up with the questions at the end. Let me percolate that a little bit, because basically anything that I say about dealing with unwanted biographical memories would certainly probably have a parallel in NLP. But unwanted biographical memories, I need to know more about how they're emerging for you, how they're arising, and what about them is unwanted. I'm not sure what Tussin Tak means, Austin Studies, but please feel free to elaborate. Anyway, let's talk more about unwanted biographical memories, because damn, did I ever have a hard time with them in my own life. All right, so another type of concentration meditation I want to share with you is the movie house exercise. So here's basically what to do. Pick your favorite movie. You could do an alphabet exercise and go, A, what movies do I know that start with A, right? Altered States. Ooh, that's a good movie, and it's apropos our topic actually, because of the chambers that are entered there, and that's a Ken Russell film, isn't it? I think so. Anyway, Altered States comes to mind. So let's just take Altered States as our movie house exercise. But if you wanted to, and you can't think of movies, just go, A, what do I know that starts with A? B, what does it start with B? Oh, Batman. What's a movie I know that starts with C? Carlito's Way. What's a movie that I know that starts with D? Dracula. What's a movie that starts with E? And so on and so on. Elysium or something. Is there a movie called Elysium? I think so. Matt Damon or whatever. Maybe it wasn't that. Jodie Foster, Matt Damon, Elysium. I think that's what it is. Anyway, that's what you could do. But let's go with Altered States. What you do is sit down in a meditation, lay down, whatever the case is, whatever's right for you, sit in a chair, and enter a movie theater in your mind. I like to go to the Uptown in Toronto. Anybody remember that? It's gone now. It's replaced, at least the last time I saw it, with a bunch of mannequins selling clothes that I wouldn't want to buy. But the Uptown Cinema, what an amazing movie theater. So I'm going to go there now in my mind. I'm going to sit in my favorite spot to sit. And then Altered States is going to start to play. And I'm going to concentrate and focus on what is the opening scene? How does it begin? What is the music? Now, I can't remember for the life of me how it opens or what the opening scene is. But somehow a sensation of music comes to mind anyway. And it's the most miraculous thing. So I concentrate on that. And I might think, what is the typical Ken Russell music like? And I do have a sense of that. Anyway, you can follow the chains of association, right? So I think of Oliver Reed when I think of Ken Russell for obvious reasons, but he's not in that movie that I remember. Then I can follow the chains of associations. And so now I go, well, what movie do I remember? And then I think of David Cronenberg's The Brood, which has Oliver Reed in it. So I'm playing a game of associations and I'm concentrating because I want to find in this exercise a movie where I know exactly how it opens. And so I do remember pretty much, I think, exactly how The Brood opens. And I remember the music because it's Howard Shore, I think. And it's this crazy violin chaos. I can hear it in my mind. And I know basically how the titles come up. And then it opens on this black scene, which is a theater stage. And Oliver Reed is sat there with, I think, Samantha Eggers is the name of the actress. I'm not sure about that. And they're doing a particular scene, enacting a kind of, let's call it Gestalt psychoanalysis. So this is the movie house exercise. Find a movie and recreate it in your mind. Then I would push. Okay, so that's the first scene. What's the next scene? What's the next scene? What's the next scene? And I wouldn't worry so much, can I rebuild it in a linear fashion? But I would just think, how can I see as many of the locations and the sounds of the voices of the actors, the music, and so on? If you haven't heard the Brood soundtrack, pretty sure it's Howard Shore. Listen to it. It might be the one that he didn't do, though, now that I think about it. I don't think so, but I think he did do it. Anyway, I'm going to remove my temptation to look it up, but if one of you wants to look it up, by all means. But in any case, it's a wonderful score, and I'm pretty sure he did almost everything else. Reclaiming Life says Tusen Tak is Norwegian for thank you, if I remember correctly. Oh, okay. Well, I've got to learn that. I've never known any Norwegian or had it thrown at me, but that does make sense. Thank you so much. Let's remember that. All right. So I hope you like the movie house exercise. If you need more like this, I got a link for you below on how to increase memory by watching movies and TV series. This is just the beginning of what you can do with all of this. You could do something similar as a concentration meditation, which would be the music album exercise. So pick an album that you love and reconstruct it in your mind. So in this case, you might go to a listening booth. Remember when music stores used to have listening booths? And you take the album and you go to the booth and you listen to it and you decide whether you want to buy it or not. You can just imagine yourself doing that and then think, okay, so I don't know, Metallica's Ride the Lightning comes to mind for some reason. What is the first song there? I think it's Fight Fire with Fire, right? Let's go with that. And then it's Ride the Lightning. And then, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And then Fade to Black. And you would reconstruct it. And then you would go back and you would think, okay, so how does it sound? What's the first sounds? And start to play it in your mind. And replay as much of that first song as you can. And just see and study your perception. The whole point is you're concentrating on the activity itself and you're concentrating on the meta activity, the concentration on the concentration itself. It's really interesting how that works. And don't get frustrated if it drops. Just start again. See how long you can hold it through. If you don't have musical memory, just then ask yourself, well, what is it that happens in the absence of music? And then start again. Maybe that album doesn't work for you. Maybe you got to go to some Leonard Cohen stuff, right? And challenge yourself. Challenge yourself, to find albums where you can't even remember for the life of you what one song was on it, let alone what the first song was. This is a really good concentration meditation. And it's a great one because it's getting you to think about where in your mind music takes place when you try to remember music. Now, for more exercises like this, please get the Brain Exercises Bootcamp. The link is down below for you. All right, so we already talked about Kirtan Kriya, but one of the things that can come from Kirtan Kriya is the Neti exercise. So let's say you're going Satanama, 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 and let's say you get distracted. Let's say you get distracted from any of these exercises. What is your strategy? What can you do? Well, one thing that you can do is just go not this, not this. That's what neti means. Not this, not this. So let's say you're concentrating on the opening of the movie, right? And something distracts you. Not this, and then back to what you're doing, right? Another thing distracts you. Just patiently. Neti, not this, and then back. You can use this when you're reading. Something distracts you. Not this, back. And then let's say you're reading and you get frustrated because you've got knocked on focus. Well, say not this to the frustration. And then you get back to focus because you're not judging, you're not getting into this emotion about it. Just not this. Very simple practice. It's a type of concentration exercise. It's sort of similar to, are my thoughts useful? How do they behave? But it's just more direct. Not this. Okay, so Pat is in the house. Good to see you, Pat. Thanks for being here from the Golden Triangle. We'll be listening to the replay. If I could only listen to one podcast, this would be the one. No compliment intended. Thank you. Thank you for for that. I really appreciate that. And I will take it as a compliment, especially because of the removal of the compliment, which is very nice. Thank you. You know my style. I appreciate that very much. All right. Another one would be something like focusing on something with some semantic content, with some sort of lesson. So I like the Nirvana Shatakam, sometimes called the Atma Shatakam, which sounds like Mano Pujahankara Chaitani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jivi Nacha Krana Nitri Nacha Vyoma Boom here Natejo Navayu. And it's just saying, I'm not my mind, I am not my memory, I am not my nose or my ears. And this is helping you pay attention to the fact that the very idea of your mind and memory appear in you, but they are not you. You are the witness to those things. And your nose is the witness. You are the witness to the nose issue, right? And then you think, well, where does the nose appear? Anyway, memorizing Nirvana Shatakam can be a very good way of starting to live this, really feel it. And the good news is it's not that easy to memorize, and it's so beautiful to sing. Feels very good. You could go for the Ribhu Gita, which is what we've been talking about already, or the Upadesa Sharam. So semantic content concentration meditations, they will teach you lessons. Very, very powerful. And last year we quoted Upadesa Sharam so many times. It's just wonderful. Please get into it. It will help you in so many ways if you fuse the beautiful sounds and the meaning. All right, another one, and we've gotten to this already, is a memory palace recall exercise, which is, sitting, and maybe you're going to do some language, whether it's semantic content in the form of a lesson. Maybe you're going to do your 00 to 99 review, or you're going to skip numbers. So you've learned the major system, and you're going to sit in meditation, laying down or whatever, and your goal is just to sit there and go through your 00 to 99 in the memory palace that you used to memorize it in the first place, or even just the fact that 00 to 99 is already a structural memory palace because it's a series of locations. And you just ask yourself, where are these locations in your mind? And then just wandering memory palaces in and of itself is a meditative exercise. And there's some meditation walkthroughs for you in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. Now, another thing that I would ask you to consider, and this goes back to Adolfo's sort of question about the steps and meditation, would be drawing memory palaces as if they were mandalas. And for all intents and purposes, what is the difference between this? Really none. It's just an attitude thing. So you could draw memory palaces and just be so fixated on focused in the moment that it is, for all intents and purposes, a meditation. Now, one thing to notice is that a lot of meditations, as they are taught, already involve memory palace mechanisms. So Michael Roach has a great exercise in one of his audio programs, and he's got so many. I think I have many years of live streaming to go before I ever even catch up with that guy. But one of them is just very simple, where he teaches a meditation, and he talks about how you could use the temple that he taught it in to help you remember it. And so, as I remember it, the first thing, part of the meditation, was to remember that you're crossing a bridge. And, just put it over in that part of the temple in your mind. There's the corner, and you're crossing a bridge, and people are always firing arrows at you. And the arrows are on fire. And the bridge is made out of wood, and the bridge is catching on fire. And the notion of this meditation is to concentrate your awareness on the fact that there will always be enemies who are trying to undercut you. Now, I don't know if that's actually true. Isn't it possible to live in such a way that you have no enemies? I think it probably is. But you're always going to have something in life that is causing a bridge that you're trying to cross to be burning. It could be constant changes to the internet. It could be whatever it is, right? Your body having issues, etc. So the idea is that you need to be able to handle in life the burning bridges, right? And the fact that there's things that are shooting more arrows all the time. So that's in corner 1 of the memory palace. I love this meditation. It's very beautiful. I mean, I haven't done it for years, but it really helped me concentrate on the fact that they're just arrows. Don't need to judge them. They're there. The bridge, you don't need to judge the bridge. The bridge is just the bridge. And the fire is just the fire. It's doing what it's doing. No need to judge it. Just, get across the bridge. Maybe you got to build a new one. Whatever. Get it done. Then the next part of the meditation is a party. And then you remember that you always have friends to celebrate with when you cross the bridge. No matter what, the bridge is burned. The friends will be at the party on the other side. So you have a big birthday cake in the next part of the temple to remember the party. And, you work to cultivate friends. Anyway, the meditation goes on a few more steps, but it's just a simple sort of thing. And if you were on the live stream where we talked about memory, method of loci, specifically that term for depression, using the research from Tim Dalglish is his name, then you know that there's great research that if you would just take a memory palace and then fill it with happy memories, you can improve your mood very, very quickly just by using the method of loci to help you trigger off, or a memory palace to help you trigger off positive memories. So you're feeling down. Instead of feeling down, you just have a heuristic. I feel down. I'm going into a memory palace. Boom, memory palace. I think of all my friends, or you think of a specific friend who you love visiting with, perhaps a particular time. You really work on concentrating and focusing on building that memory palace, that memory that's so wonderful and profound. And then anytime that you feel bad, you go there. Now, NLP people do this. Back to the topic of NLP, they talk about it as anchoring. And a lot of what people will do in a hypnosis session is they will try to get you to physically anchor things so that you could press a spot on your body to help you recall that memory. Now, there's not much difference between pressing your leg to trigger off a positive memory than just visiting a memory palace to trigger off a positive memory. So I would say NLP is irrelevant. It's just what are we doing here, and who's doing it, and do you accept the suggestion that these things work by how you think about it yourself and how others have helped you think about it that way. So think about those things. At the end of the day, everything is the memory palace, right? Everything is memory, because the quality of right now is the quality of you having a strategy to deal with whatever comes. Those arrows come to burn your bridge. What do you remember to do? Whether you remember it because you have positive conditioning where you're not really thinking about what to do, you just do it, or what can you remember to do to deal with the situation? I think that everything is memory, and I think that there's all the evidence in the world to support that. So the quality of your memory is the quality of your life, and all these exercises that we've talked about today will help you. They will help you. So please make sure to put them into practice. Read Standing as Awareness. Understand that all of this will help you stand as awareness. And if you need more resources, well, we've got tons. I'm not done this book yet, but The Flight of the Garuda, amazing, wonderful. It maps onto Advaita Vedanta beautifully, which I studied intensively for a couple of years here. Now I'm doing Hermeticism, maps beautifully onto Hermeticism. I wouldn't say it's accurate that all paths lead to the same place or achieve the same thing for the person following the path, but I would say that the more you know of the paths, the more enabled you are to have the best possible path. And the thing that I love in The Flight of the Garuda is just the simply the notion that's said there so many times that that the starting point is the goal. The starting point is the goal. Always have a beginner's mind in these matters. And I like here that it says, from the first it is Buddha. Trust in this. And, the Zen of that is that it takes a Buddha to recognize a Buddha. Well, I'll bet that everybody on this live stream, every single last one of you on this live stream, you are perfectly aware of what Buddha means. And so if you recognize the word Buddha, there's the Zen exercise for you. What are the implications of that? Chrome Woman Walking with a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Chrome Woman Walking. I really appreciate your support always. Enjoy the replay. And wow, I feel so blessed and honored that you're in our community. I hope that we will be doing this for many, many, many years to come. Harvinder is in the house. Namaste. Good morning in India. Austin says, that sounds like a philosophy I heard about around here called Eastern Hellenistic. I'll have to look into that. I've not heard that term. Certainly heard Hellenistic before. Anyway, I've got a bunch of questions to get through in the live stream chat. So we're going to go through that. Please post any further comments or questions that you have. But even before that, yesterday I had posted on the community tab what questions people had about concentration and focus, and I have some answers about them. So the first, and thank you for everybody on the community tab for taking the time to answer those questions. I incorporated some of the answers already in today's presentation, but one of them that I hadn't really addressed yet is the idea of drifting. So the question was, is drifting bad while performing any of these meditations? No, drifting is not necessarily bad. The question is, do you stop and ask yourself, where is the mind in which this drifting is happening? Or what is this drifting and to whom is the drifting happening? This is a self-inquiry question. And if you find yourself drifting, the real goal is to, start again and just say, to whom is this drifting happening? And where is it happening? When is it happening? And there's many, many ways to perform that exercise. But drifting cannot be a good or bad thing, because good or bad are just ideas that exist. And yes, we can get more complicated about that. And there's obviously good and bad in the world at some level. But in this realm, there's only bad if you allow yourself to get frustrated, you get emotional about things. But drifting is actually normal and it's good. It's diffuse thinking, and many, many revelations can come from just that, allowing yourself to drift. So I love to go for walks, take a shower, drift. Or when I drift off when I'm reading, I just become aware that I've drifted off and then simply go right back to where I was. It's just very, very simple. So I would just say, don't judge it. Don't make it a good or bad thing. Make it a part of the exercise. Make it something to observe and turn observation of drifting into a concentration exercise. And understand, as we've talked about today, that you have the concentration exercise itself, and then you have your observation of your concentration as you execute the exercises. And there's like a sense of peeling back the layers of the onion until that you find that actually you always were 100% concentrated. You were standing as awareness all along. You just didn't see it, because this is the ultimate revelation that comes from this, is to be liberated from the idea that there is anything other than what is. It's just this, and nothing more. Not to. That's what Advaita means. Advaita, properly pronounced, I believe, is Advaita Vedanta. It just simply means not to, as shown in the Vedas. So Vedanta at the end of the Vedas. So the conclusion of the Vedic text is just simply not two, only one. And when you come to realize that there really is only one, it's right now, this thing here, this screen that appears in front of me and in front of you, and our consciousness is certainly flowing and connecting and sharing, but when? In the now, in the one. And our connectedness is, and the quality of it is due to the integrity of our awareness to concentrate and focus in the now. So that's going to come in very useful when I answer these questions about what should you do if you only have 2 weeks to study, etc. But I also was asked about the role of comfort and discomfort. And so on there, I know I did. Are we back? I think so. Sorry about that. So role of discomfort, comfort, this is like a good, bad thing, right? Is drifting good or bad? Well, is comfort or discomfort good or bad? I'm in a lot of discomfort with my shoulder recently, both shoulders now, unfortunately. And yeah, the thing is if I judge it, well, then it's bad. But if I just work with it, find a way to integrate it, deal with it while I'm working on improving it, well, then it's not necessarily good. It just is what it is. One of the things to talk about with role of comfort, discomfort is when you're doing these exercises, it doesn't really matter if you sit in a meditation pose. As James Schwartz points out, the only reason why people sat and figured out all these ways of sitting through yoga and whatnot is to prepare the body to sit because they didn't have chairs. I don't know if he's right about that or not, but just on its face, it sounds very logical, right? All of these things developed because they just hadn't had chairs yet. So there's really nothing to say that you couldn't sit in a chair to perform all these exercises and get the same benefit. You can lay down to perform all these exercises and get the same benefit. You can walk and perform these exercises and get the same benefit. But you have to figure that out. But if you're sitting around making yourself uncomfortable because you've turned sitting into a requirement, then I think you're missing the point. The point is knowledge, right? And knowledge of your concentration, knowledge of your awareness, knowledge of what it means to stand as awareness, not to be in awareness, but to be awareness itself and to maintain it. So yeah, you don't need to be in discomfort, but if you are in discomfort, then you need to make it part of the exercise. So I hope that helps answer that question. And another thing to finesse here, when Tim Ferriss interviewed Wim Hof, Tim Ferriss says, so much comfort, and Nick said it here today as well, so much comfort is killing us, right? Comfort is not the path. Sometimes we need to willingly accept discomfort. I don't think putting yourself in a position to sit uncomfortably is the kind of discomfort that you should accept, because I'm just as happy as peaches laying down when I meditate as I am sitting up. And I would prefer to sit up, but I can't because of my shoulder right now, and I may never be able to again because maybe the way I was sitting is part of why my shoulders got so bad in the first place. I don't know, but at the end of the day, you can't make sitting and the discomfort of sitting somehow a special tool or whatever. But where discomfort can come into play is like cold showers. That's a discomfort that is very rewarding. Fasting is a discomfort that's very rewarding. I fasted from when I woke up when I went to sleep until 4 p.m. yesterday. Yeah, some hours are a little bit more uncomfortable than others, but man, the power of and the focus and the concentration that comes out of it, because I'm a pretty busy-minded person, and I have to work on my concentration all the time. So the discomfort of fasting helps me be more sharp and focused. The discomfort of cold showers helps me be focused. Also, there's just discomforts of doing what needs to be done just because it needs to be done and putting aside all the things you want to do, right? So the discomfort of fulfilling needs now is when they need to be done is a very, very rewarding discomfort to take on. So keep that in mind. Now, William had asked, can concentration from meditation be measured? And I think so, actually. And there's a number of ways to think about that. But just in terms of concentration in general, there's something called SART. And SART, I haven't memorized it yet, is sustained attention to response task. And essentially what they do is they will, they're going to repeatedly ask you to give a response. So press a button, press a button, press a button. And so an event will occur on a screen, a shape will change color, and then they're going to measure, the strength of how you press that button to see how much your attention and focus may have changed due to the way they set up the integrity of your signals and whatnot. So yeah, that can be measured in that way. But in Happiness Beyond Thought, which I've somehow reorganized here in a different way, it has a simple exercise that you can try, which I remember William telling me about. And basically what Weber says is, he says, I don't know if you can see this, but he says just draw a line. It's not really showing up, but draw a line, and then every time your thoughts change directions with the line. So there you can see it a little bit better. So on the bottom there's a person whose thoughts are changing all the time, right? And just measure your own focus by drawing a straight line. Every time your thoughts change, just change direction a little bit and see if you can work to having your concentration go for a long time. I think you could also mind map to see how long you can mind map through something. And another way to measure your concentration and focus would be something like entrainment. So you could make a self-hypnosis tape and then put on a timer and see how long that you can actually be aware of what you're doing, focused and concentrated on it. And then just stop the timer when you no longer feel concentrated. And then say, okay, so that's 20 seconds or that's 2 minutes or whatever it is. Make a note of it in a journal. And then over time, see how much further you can get through. You could do this with an album. Switch on an album. I don't know, Ride the Lightning or whatever. And just time yourself how long you can stay attuned to the music. I have some tests like this. For example, I play Bach, and I could just know that's the note where my concentration loses. I've never timed it though, but I should time how long it takes. And then you could think like 3 songs together. That's a way you could measure it. So there's that. I often think of how long I get through the meditations that I recite before I make a mistake or I hesitate. So if I'm going Chittameva Mahadosham, Chittameva Hi Balakaha, Chittameva Mahatmayam, Chittameva Mahanasa, Chittameva Hi Mithya Atma, Chittam Shashavi Shanava, Chittam Nasti Sada Satyam, Chittam Vanjaku Merava, Chittam. So let's just say that was a break. I'd go, okay, so I got to the 3rd part and then I made that mistake. So you can measure it that way. There's many, many ways. I think that you need to come up with your own metric and then from there, see how you want to improve that metric. But yeah, I think it can definitely be measured. All right, so let's get in with our questions from the chat. And so basically they were the same question over and over and over again. I think we've covered Maria's question about where you get the first push to be concentrated. And let's carry on here. I'm just looking through radio silence. Maybe I should sing while I do this. So Logical Indian had said, oh, no, it wasn't him. That was a different thing. Bardan, I have an exam in 5 days. That was one of them. So if you have an exam in 5 days, here's the first thing I would suggest that you do. And by the way, now's the time if you want to have any more back and forth with your questions, pop your questions into the chat. Let me know what they are or any comments. And basically all of these questions were, I have an exam in 5 days. I have an exam in 2 weeks. What should you do? First thing I want you to do is commit right now to dig your wells before you're thirsty so that you're never asking someone again a question like, I have an exam in 5 days or 2 weeks. What should I do? Because everything else that I'm about to say is pretty much irrelevant. You should not be in the position of having an exam in 5 days or 2 weeks and running around worried about what's going to happen. 2 weeks before your exam, you should be bulletproof already if you've had advance warning. It depends on the amount of advance warning that you had, but it's really, really important that you not be in this position. Now you might say, well, that's not particularly helpful. What should I do? Well, you're right. That isn't helpful now, but it's going to be helpful in the future. So listen up, buck up and start to change so that you're never in this position again. I didn't have pop exams at all, really, in university. I don't remember having them. But the point is that you just don't want to be in that position. So how do you not be in that position? Make sure you have a sufficient number of memory palaces. Make sure you know how to create magnetic imagery that sticks. Make sure you know recall rehearsal. Make sure you know the big 5 of learning, which is based on the levels of processing effect. And make sure that you practice daily your memory at least 4 times a week. And this is very, very important. Calpano is here in the house. Thank you for being here. This is really, really important so that you can prepare and have all the information that you need in advance and be there. Now, if you didn't have that, let's be, more practical given that you don't have those things. what would you do? What should you do? Well, the first thing would be that you want to think about the 80-20 rule and not skim, not try to speed read or whatever, but just think, what is the most likely information going to be here? And if your answer is, I don't know, then you go to the professor and say, are there previous exams? Go to fellow students, find out, go to the secretary of the department. Are there previous exams? Figure out what that exam is going to look like to the best of your ability. Don't let it scare you. Just find out what's there and what's likely to be there. Then go to the textbook. See if you can go to the library and find 2 or 3 copies of the previous editions of that textbook. Try and see what's common there and start to look through the questions, the exam question or the exercises in the chapter, if that's relevant. And start to pool together an idea of the most likely questions. There will be summaries there. There will be sample questions. There will be exercises. All of those things are there for preparing you for exams. So pool all that stuff together. And then probably that book has an index, and that index will help you find that information in that book and really, really make sure that you're focused on it. And that's what I would suggest. Be educated, and be educated from the people who are actually giving the exam, and then reverse engineer the most likely information that's going to be on that exam. And, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you can go to the department secretary of the school and find out. And if they won't help you out, just find another way. Just find out who previous students were and get in touch with them. And good luck. But don't ever get yourself in that position again. It's not necessary. Also, take care of your sleep. Start to meditate if you're not meditating already. It can take a while for meditation effects to kick in, but usually not too long. A lot of people find immediate effects. Make sure you're well hydrated. Make sure that you have a good positive attitude. Maybe start to learn some of these memory techniques and just make a simple memory palace with 3 or 4 positive memories so that you can go in and just feel good and go, I remember this, and be in high spirits. Get yourself some motivational music. I used to love to listen to the Conan soundtrack when I was in university. I loved to listen to the RoboCop soundtrack when I was in university. I don't know why, but RoboCop is just brilliant. And I used to listen to a lot of movie soundtracks, right? And just, even the Rocky soundtrack. Sounds kind of silly, but at the same time, what is Rocky doing? He's going to get a punch. He's going to get thrown to the ground, etc. But he's going to get up and he's going to win. Bam. Fighter, pilot attitude, winner attitude, champion attitude. You are the asset. You are the champion horse. So this is very, very important. Set yourself up for success and remove negative thoughts. And then remember, dig your wells before you're thirsty. And don't show up here again with that question, because now you know. And feel free to show up here with that question again, but be prepared for the same answer, because I don't think it's going to change. And learn how to use your memory. Learn how to use it well. And you have all the resources in the world and no reason not to. All right. So, Chrome Woman Walking, thank you again for that super chat. I was reminded that you had a question too, which was about music for concentration. So we've kind of given a music exercise, which was part of that, but I forgot to point out that's something that was coming from your question. And it's something that I've talked about before and so forth. But in terms of music for concentration, it depends. I would say that, they say content is king, and I would say that that's the answer to the question. But context is God, right? So the context of the concentration that you want matters here. So when we're talking about music for concentration, we would say first, well, what is it you want to concentrate on? Because if I go to, say, write a new blog post, or I write a chapter of a book, and I'm going to listen to, I don't know, whatever death metal band, let's say, not going to be able to write. I'm not going to be able to concentrate. Very rarely, anyway. But if I listen to a particular album that I love to listen to when I write, then I'll be able to concentrate very, very well. And that comes down to the fact that that music is meditative in the sense of writing. It helps me concentrate on writing, which I've entrained myself with it. And it actually is possible to sit and write a 1,700 to 2,000 word article like that all the time. I just sit down, put it on, and seem to go. I have a different album that I use for editing, and that has different properties that help that. Now, I don't really listen to music when I meditate, except for that I do. I don't think of it as music, but when I do the Upadesa Shram, for example, Karturagnya Prapute Karma Kim Param Karma Tajadam, that's music in a context. So the content has its purpose. It's the king, but the context is God, right? So I'm using that for a particular kind of meditation. But I don't really think that I would use music just as a concentration meditation. But one thing you can do is, think about the different things that are out there and just sort of follow your bliss and set your goal. So my goal is that I want to have this level of concentration. I'm going to explore 10 pieces of concentration music and see if this actually gets me anywhere, because I want my concentration to be like this. And my guess is that this would not get very far very fast. What would get very far very fast is if you were to practice meditations that would increase your concentration because you're memorizing music, as opposed to finding an external piece of music that's somehow going to give you concentration on autopilot. I don't think that's going to happen. So, but I could be wrong. But, at least 10 things to see what happens. And it can be that you find a couple of pieces of music. When you lay down or you sit down and you put it on, you're just now concentrating on the music and you're meditating on it. But this goes back to, again, I included the prized album exercise here today for you from the Brain Exercise Bootcamp in response to your mentioning it. And it is, I think, the exercise to go for. Try to mentally recreate an album. And then inside the Brain Exercise Bootcamp, there's a little bit deeper things, which is essentially listen to an album and track one instrument. And that can be a concentration meditation for you. Or it can be an actual product that's out there where people say that their binaural beats or whatever will help you prove and correct. I would say I wouldn't leave it to their claim. I would then say, okay, this is an album. It's got some certain sounds. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to pick something to concentrate on in it. So let's say it's some sort of beat music, and it's got like tree sounds and bird sounds, but there's also this little bit of. I would say I'm going to count the cymbal, right? I'm going to count the hi-hat. So it's like. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or try to do it with number skipping. 1, 3, 4, or whatever. 5. Can't even do it in my mind because I'm juggling so many things. But that sort of thing. 1, 3, 5, etc. You're just studying music now, but that's part of what a concentration meditation would be, right? Is being with the music. All right. Well, gern geschehen, Austin Studies. Vielen Dank. Kannst du Deutsch eigentlich? Keko is here. Good to see you, Keko. Thanks for joining us. All right, everybody. So I think we've covered everything. Let me just do one last scan of our questions. And I think we got it all. I apologize if I missed anything. My eyes get a little bit weak here, and I don't know that I see everything, but I think we got everything. If you're going to be in Melbourne on the 20th, come join me and see the TEDx on February 20th, 2020 in Melbourne. And if you're not part of the Magnetic Mary Method Street Team yet for the release of the next book, please get involved, because I go into the recording studio tomorrow to narrate every single page of the new book. And man, oh man, is it going to take a while. It won't be over until February 6th. So imagine that, 28th of January tomorrow for us here in Australia, and I've been doing it until February 6th. Oh, well, new things to learn and new memory palaces. If you want to have those some behind the scenes footage, please make sure that you are part of the Magnetic Memory Method street team for the book launch, because as an exclusive for those people who are on the street team for the launch, I have for you behind the scenes footage. We're going to talk about turning the studio into a memory palace. And I've already got 2 videos for you the instant that you join the street team that will give you some good stuff already, including the first reveal of the Mind Palace, the Memory Palace map that we have built the book around, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Ronald is in the house. He says, I'm working on a music theory project that incorporates lists of 2-chord sequences of chord building blocks. It is within a big key, which incorporates other keys. Excellent. Love to hear more about that, Ronald. Music is interesting. It's a very, very interesting thing, and how it relates to all this, how it's the same as, different from the wonderful nature of other things that one would memorize, such as numbers using the major, or languages using something like bridging figures, and the principle of word division is still not clear to me. All these things are their own thing, but they all bridge together in many interesting and exciting ways. All right, everybody. Thank you very, very much for being here today. I appreciate the time we get to spend together. Let me know how things go for you with these concentration meditations. You're very free to watch the replay here on the YouTuberoni. As you may have noticed, we then like to turn these into formal podcast episodes, formal blog posts later. So if you are missing a fast action summary of what we did from really 2017 or so until now, late 2017, I think we started live streaming. You can go through the blog at magneticmerrymethod.com/blog, and a lot of those live streams are now in crisp, clear, clean, and pristine blog post form and audio form on the podcast, and some of them have been turned into video playlists as well. New playlists starting, I believe, for you this week. Looking forward to getting that out to you. Please support the initiative by interacting and engaging with the videos, your thoughts on them, and smashing that robot-inducing appendage. Apparently, they're wiping out our ability to use language, so we need in Newspeak to not actually say what this means. But I do anyway. Thumbs up for memory. And get engaged. That really helps let the robots know that they care about this tradition. So I certainly care about it myself very much. Thank you, Dave, for your thank you. Really glad that you were here today, and hope everything is going great for you and for all of you as well. Thank you again for a wonderful session, and until we have a chance to speak again, come visit me at magneticmerrymethod.com. Please get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already by hitting that subscribe button, enable the notifications, get involved in the replay discussion if you weren't here live, and go to magneticmerrymethod.com, and I will see you over there very, very soon. And until then, keep yourself magnetic. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, so I'm here in the Atlanta airport. I was just thinking about how grateful and thankful I am for what Anthony did for me. I do seminars all across the country, usually have about 100 to 300 people every single weekend, and one of my biggest goals was to be able to memorize their names, and started studying some stuff and learning, and it wasn't connecting as fast as it needed to, and I just wasn't connecting the dots, and started doing some research online, and there I found Anthony. And Anthony, I just want to tell you thank you very much for all that you've done. Now, man, my memorization is through the roof. I've almost reached my goal of getting 300 people at one time. I'm not exactly there yet. I'm off just by a few, but I'll get there as I keep practicing and keep connecting what I've learned from you and what you've put and you've helped me with. And so I just want to tell everybody, if you're looking to take your memory palaces and your memory techniques to the next level, I mean, Anthony's the guy. If he can help me go from not even remembering people's names, and that's the biggest issue of my life in my seminars, to actually being able to memorize over 100 and something people's names, close to 200. Man, he can help any of you guys out with anything. So I just want to give a shout out to Anthony. Very thankful, very grateful for meeting you. Very thankful for the fact that as soon as I sent you an email, you responded very quickly, very promptly. You just opened up your time and gave me a scheduled time very quickly also. And the support afterwards was well above and beyond. I mean, you could have ended it right there, but he didn't. He kept emailing me and make sure I was okay, and would send me emails periodically to make sure that I was following up and following through. So again, just want to thank you very much, Anthony. As I'm walking through this airport, getting ready to jump on a plane to Seattle, I was just thinking about how grateful and thankful I am for you being in my life and for helping me take those steps to the next level. And if anyone is out there is ever thinking about, should I work with Anthony, the answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes, beyond the shadow of a doubt. I could probably keep going on and on. But again, thank you, Anthony. And I really appreciate you. You've been a blessing in my life.